Chapter 234. Imperial Mother, I've finished writing. Can I go play with older cousin? Hua Qingwang and Xiao Qingyang came over from the side chamber, holding the written characters in their hands. Ningxu took a look and said, starting tomorrow, Qingyang will write 10 more characters every day. Your handwriting is really ugly. This consort remembers that your father's handwriting was very good. My father knows how to write. I've never seen my father write before. My mother said that my father's handwriting is like a dog's scratch? Xiao Qingyang asked Ningxu with a shocked expression. Ningxu was speechless. Naughty child. Hua Qingwang covered his mouth and laughed. Ningxu waved his hand. Go play. After the two naughty children left, Ningxu planned to enter the bedchamber to meditate and train his body before doing anything. Not long after, Hua Qingwang ran over in tears with a panicked expression. Ningxu shouted, Imperial Mother, save me. Imperial Father is going to beat Brother Qingyang to death. Ningxu hurriedly got down from the bed. With a heavy expression, he picked up Hua Qingwang and asked, Where is he? In the Imperial Garden. Hua Qingwang was so scared that he started crying. Imperial Father is so scary. Ningxu quickly arrived at the Imperial Garden and saw Xiao Qingyang being pressed down on a stool, struggling like a little calf. Stop, this consort stops. Ningxu saw that the board was about to land on Xiao Qingyang's body and hurriedly called out. Xiao Qingyang was only a 7 or 8-year-old child. If this board hit him, wouldn't it kill him? Hua Qing, that bastard. Hua Qing's expression was cold when he saw Ningxu arrive. The little fox was in Hua Qing's arms. The golden fur on her body reflected a beautiful luster under the sunlight. In all honesty, this fox was really beautiful. People couldn't help but want to stroke her fur. If it wasn't for Hua Qing, this fox's fur would probably have become a scarf around the necks of the concubines in the harem long ago. Ningxu put Hua Qingwang down and bowed. He asked Hua Qing, Your Majesty, did this child Xiao Qingyang do something wrong? You're running around the palace with the prince. As the prince's study companion, aren't you leading the prince astray by being so unrestrained? Hua Qing's expression was very ugly. Xiao Qingyang was from the marshal's mansion, and Xiao Xiao actually had the marshal's mansion's child accompany him to study. Did she think that this position would be Hua Qingwang's in the future, and had already arranged for someone to be by his side? Ningxu took a deep breath and said, Qingwang is still young. I want Qingwang to have a playmate, so I called Qingyang into the palace. Hua Qing's eyes were deep, and no one could understand his current emotions. He said lightly, A loving mother leads to a useless son. Don't forget that Qingwang is a child of the royal family. He doesn't need any playmates at all. Some people are destined to be lonely. Come, beat this dog to death for Zhen. How can he be Zhen's child if he's so frivolous? Hua Qing said with a heavy expression. Immediately, guards surrounded the puppy and hit it with a board. The puppy cried out miserably. It was hit in the head by the board and walked unsteadily. Mother, mother, save the puppy. Mother. Hua Qingwang pulled on Ningxu's sleeve and cried for help from Ningxu. Ningxu shook Hua Qingwang's head. This wasn't just about a dog. The puppy that was hit in the head fell to the ground and twitched. It whimpered twice and was hit in the head by another guard. The puppy's head was immediately deformed and blood splattered out. Ah! Hua Qingwang screamed. Ningxu quickly picked up Hua Qingwang and let him lie in his arms. The moment the puppy was killed, Hua Qing covered the little fox's eyes. The little fox's body trembled as if it was afraid. Hua Qing moved closer to the little fox's ear and whispered, Don't be afraid of Zhen. Zhen won't do this to you. That was just an animal. You are the most special in Zhen's heart. Hua Qing comforted the little fox and turned to Ningxu. He said coldly, The empress doesn't just have to manage the harem. She also has to take care of the child. As a child of the royal family, you can't be so willful. Ningxu held the trembling Hua Qingwang and bowed to Hua Qing. She sighed and said, Zhen will remember. Hua Qing ignored the sad Ningxu and left with the little fox. Ningxu glanced at Hua Qing's back and smiled coldly. Hua Qing really was a strong opponent. Auntie. Xiao Qingyang's eyes were a little red. His legs were so weak that he couldn't get up. Ningxu had the eunuch carry Xiao Qingyang. The puppy's body was collected and brought back. Hua Qingwang kept sobbing in Ningxu's arms. His grip on Ningxu tightened. His whole body was trembling, and his eyes were closed as if he didn't dare open them. Ningxu sighed and gently patted his back. He said softly, "Chunwang, don't be afraid. Mother will protect you. Mother will protect Chunwang." Ningxu carried Hua Chunwang all the way back to the bedroom. Hua Chunwang didn't let go of Ningxu, so Ningxu kept hugging him. "Auntie, I didn't take good care of the little prince." Xiao Qingyang wiped away Ningxu's tears. "What happened?" Ningxu asked with a frown. Xiao Qingyang told him everything that had happened. The two little turnips were chasing each other in the imperial garden. The little fox, who had recovered from its injuries, came out for a stroll. It ran into two people and a dog. The little fox saw the white and tender little boy playing with a stupid dog, so it ran over to tease the stupid dog. But how could a dog be as smart as the little fox? When it smelled the scent of the little fox, it chased after it. Hua Qing came to find the little fox. When he saw the little fox being chased by a dog, he immediately became angry. Especially when he saw the two animals rolling around and playing. He became even more angry and jealous. A strong possessiveness exploded in his heart. He directly walked over and kicked the dog away. He patted the dust off the little fox and held it in his arms. He looked at Hua Chunwang and Xiao Qingyang with an unfriendly gaze. Hua Chunwang hadn't seen his father in a long time. He was very happy to see Hua Qing. Before he could say anything, he was scolded by Hua Qing for being ignorant and incompetent. He scolded him for not having any royal etiquette. When he found out that Xiao Qingyang was Hua Chunwang's study companion, Hua Qing had Xiao Qingyang flogged when the prince made a mistake. Then, Hua Chunwang went to find Ningxu. A dog had died in this accident, but Ningxu knew that Hua Qing was warning him and the Xiao family. The little fox could really cause trouble wherever it went. Ningxu couldn't directly confront Hua Qing without being completely confident. If you want to destroy someone, you must first make them crazy. Let's see what kind of crazy things Hua Qing would do to protect the little fox. He felt that it was really ironic. He had no feelings for his wife, and didn't even have the slightest bit of gratitude. He was also indifferent to his own son, but he gave his passion to a fox. He gave almost all of his feelings to the fox. Ningxu cursed inwardly. The female lead's golden finger was too big. It was so bright that he couldn't look straight at it. Chapter 235. Hua Chunwang was tired from crying in Ningxu's arms. He closed his eyes and fell asleep. Ningxu sighed and placed Hua Chunwang on the bed. She had Qingzhu draw some warm water to wipe the tears off Hua Chunwang's face. Hua Chunwang's eyes were red and swollen. Ningxu stayed by the bed. Xiao Qingyang blamed herself for not protecting her cousin and the little puppy's death. "Auntie," Xiao Qingyang called out to Ningxu. Ningxu rubbed her forehead and said, "Qingyang, you must have been frightened. Go eat something and rest. Now that Chunwang is like this, Auntie hopes that you can stay by his side." Hua Chunwang was probably hurt by today's events. "Auntie, Qingyang will take good care of my cousin." Xiao Qingyang immediately patted her chest and promised Ningxu. In the middle of the night, Hua Chunwang had a fever. His temperature was very high. Ningxu was prepared. She had Qingzhu bring a bowl of medicine to Hua Chunwang. However, Hua Chunwang only drank half of the medicine before spitting out the rest. "Nyang Nyang, should we call the imperial physician?" Qingzhu was so anxious that her face was red. "Call the imperial physician over, and then boil the medicine." Ningxu wiped Hua Chunwang's body with a wet handkerchief. Hua Chunwang was too frightened today. Ningxu wasn't surprised that he would fall ill. However, when she saw that Hua Chunwang was really sick, Ningxu was still very anxious. The little person was lying on the bed and talking nonsense. Ningxu was really afraid that Hua Chunwang had a fever. Qingzhu called the imperial physician over to perform acupuncture on Hua Chunwang. When the medicine was served, Ningxu immediately took the bowl of medicine and fed it to Hua Chunwang. "Nyang Nyang, let this servant do it." Qingzhu saw that Ningxu was anxious and quickly said. Ningxu took a deep breath. "It's fine. I'll do it myself." "Nyang Nyang, do you want to invite His Majesty over?" Qingzhu Ningxu asked. Since the little prince was so seriously ill, His Majesty should come over to take a look. Ningxu originally wanted to ask why she had called that damned person over. But considering that there was a room full of grand doctors present, She didn't want her gentle and empathetic image of the Empress to collapse. She could only suppress her grief and say, "It's already midnight. The Emperor has already gone to bed. Tomorrow morning, the Emperor has an early court session. Don't disturb the Emperor's rest." The imperial physician looked at Ning Shu with pity in his eyes. Ning Shu's mouth twitched, and he wiped Hua Qinhuang's body with a handkerchief. "Your Highness." Qing Zhu's eyes were slightly red. Ning Shu felt that she was really miserable. The emperor that Ning Shu said had gone to bed wasn't asleep. Instead, he was lying on the bed, looking at the little fox sleeping on the table. The little fox looked at Hua Qing warily. When faced with such a gaze, Hua Qing felt as if his heart was being squeezed by a large hand. It was very uncomfortable. The fox he liked should have a sly, cute, clear, and charming look in her eyes. She shouldn't be looking at him with such a wary and unfamiliar gaze. The little fox wasn't afraid of Hua Qing. Although Hua Qing was the emperor, he was very good to her. But when he ordered the puppy's death today, the little fox was scared out of her wits. She finally understood that this man was an emperor who could live or die as he pleased. The little fox empathized with the puppy's death. She was no longer a human but a fox. Human life was worthless, and she was just an animal. Hua Qing got up from the bed and walked in front of the little fox. He reached out and hugged the little fox. The little fox's fur stood on end. Hua Qing gently stroked the little fox's back and whispered softly, "You shouldn't be afraid of me. You are mine. Seeing you play with other people makes me very uncomfortable. Although you are a fox, I have never thought of you as a fox in my heart. You are more important than anyone else in my heart. You are my pet. I dote on you and love you dearly." Hua Qing looked at the little fox with a burning gaze. I have never seen such a beautiful and intelligent fox. When she met Hua Qing's gaze, the little fox's heart beat rapidly. When she heard Hua Qing's words, the little fox felt that she was very lucky. Although she had become a fox, she had met Hua Qing. The Transmigration god didn't treat her unfairly. The little fox felt that she was letting down Hua Qing's love by being so afraid of him. She looked at him with a guilty gaze and stuck out her tongue to lick Hua Qing's fingers. Hua Qing's body trembled slightly, and then he said happily, "Fox, you're not angry anymore?" When the little fox saw the smile on Hua Qing's face, her eyes were filled with hearts. He really was a super handsome guy. "Do I look good?" Hua Qing smiled brightly at the little fox. The little fox immediately nodded. "You look good, you look very good." Hua Qing stroked the fox's smooth ears and carried the little fox to the dragon bed. The man and the fox snuggled together. Ning Shu watched over Hua Qinhuang for the entire night. After the imperial physician's efforts, Hua Qinhuang's fever finally subsided, and he stopped talking nonsense. Ning Shu sat by the bed and watched over him. He said to Xiao Qingyang, who was beside him, "Qingyang, go to sleep. Auntie Qingyang is not tired. Qingyang will watch over cousin until he wakes up." Xiao Qingyang's eyes were red. He had cried before and stayed up all night. His eyes really looked like a rabbit's eyes. Ning Shu didn't force him. If he was tired, he could lie on the bed and sleep for a while. Imperial concubine, drink some hot tea. Qing Zhu held a teacup. Ning Shu took it and gulped it down. Then, she used a handkerchief to wipe the sweat off Hua Qinhuang's body. Hua Qinhuang slept for a day and a night before waking up. He opened his eyes and looked at Ning Shu in a daze. Ning Shu was dumbfounded. Could it be that there was something wrong with the fever? Imperial Mother, Qinhuang is scared. Hua Qinhuang's voice was very hoarse. Ning Shu quickly poured some water for Hua Qinhuang to drink. As Hua Qinhuang drank the water, he cried. Ning Shu hugged Hua Qinhuang and said softly, "Qinhuang, don't be afraid. Imperial Mother will definitely protect Qinhuang." "Cousin, you're awake." Xiao Qingyang, who was lying on the bed, woke up. When he saw that Hua Qinhuang had woken up, he was so happy that he wanted to cry. "Cousin." Hua Qinhuang's body was very uncomfortable. It was so uncomfortable that he wanted to die. Ning Shu told Xiao Qingyang to go down and eat breakfast. Only Ning Shu and Hua Qinhuang were left in the bedchamber. Ning Shu looked at Hua Qinhuang and asked, "Qinhuang is blaming Imperial Mother. You're blaming Imperial Mother for not saving the puppy, aren't you?" Hua Qinhuang's tears fell again. Ning Shu asked hoarsely, "Why Imperial Mother?" Ning Shu shook his head and said indifferently, "Because Imperial Mother couldn't do it. Why? Hua Chunwang looked at Ningshu in confusion. Ningshu reached out and patted Hua Chunwang's head. Chunwang, it's because Imperial Mother is facing your Imperial Father. He is the most powerful person in the world. Everyone is a subject in front of him, including Imperial Mother and you. Imperial Mother has already saved your cousin. This can't be repeated. Chunwang, do you want Imperial Mother to give up on saving Qingyang and saving the puppy? No, Chunwang doesn't want anything to happen to cousin. Hua Chunwang shook his head. But why did Imperial Father beat the puppy to death? It didn't know anything. He was jealous and warned her and the Xiao family. Chapter 236. Hua Qing was dissatisfied with her, and with Xiao Qingyang becoming Hua Qing's study companion, Hua Chunwang felt terrible. He had never felt so terrible before. Ningshu sighed and said, Mother has taken care of the puppy's body. When you are better, bury it. Hua Chunwang stared at Ningshu and asked word by word. Imperial Father also has a little fox by his side. Imperial Father can raise a little fox, but he said that I lost my will to play around and killed a little dog. Why can Imperial Father do it, but I can't? Chunwang wants to know why. Ningshu looked at this child. He was different from before. After experiencing pain, he should have come to his senses. Even though he had the noble identity of a prince, this nobility was like duckweed without roots. Ningshu smiled faintly. Why? Because your father is the emperor. He controls the fate of the world. He holds our fate in his hands. No one can provoke him. He has the absolute power to protect the things he loves. He can take away the most important things of others, but no one dares to say anything. Father is the emperor. He has the power to protect the things he loves. Hua Chunwang looked at Ningshu in a daze. Ningshu hugged Hua Chunwang and said faintly, Chunwang, there is nothing absolute in this world. Everyone has to pay the price for their actions. Mother hopes that Chunwang can be happy, but do not desire the affection of an ordinary family from your father. Your father is the emperor. He controls our fate. Even our lives are in the hands of others, let alone feelings. Mother, what should Chunwang do to not feel so terrible? Hua Chunwang shed tears and looked at Ningshu. I want to protect Mother. I want to protect the things that I cherish. I don't want what happened today to happen again. Mother, I feel terrible. I feel terrible. Ningshu's heart ached. She used her handkerchief to wipe away the tears on Hua Chunwang's face and patted his back. Chunwang, be happy. Your Imperial Father can't take away your happiness. Imperial Mother hopes that Chunwang will be happy. Imperial Mother will seek justice for what happened today. Mother. Hua Chunwang threw himself into Ningshu's arms and wailed. Ningshu, however, breathed a sigh of relief. Venting was better than holding it in. There were still tears on Hua Chunwang's face. Ningshu wiped the tears off his face with a handkerchief. Nyang Nyang, have some food. Qingzhu's face was somewhat haggard. She had accompanied Ningshu to keep watch for the entire night. Ningshu took the bowl of porridge and said to Hua Chunwang, Chunwang, eat something. You'll get better faster. Ningshu fed Hua Chunwang spoonful after spoonful of porridge. Hua Chunwang asked Ningshu, Imperial Mother, has Imperial Father been here? Has Imperial Father come to see me? No. Ningshu shook his head. Chunwang, Mother said not to have too many feelings and expectations for your Imperial Father. I just want Imperial Father to know that what he did before was wrong. He caused me a lot of harm. I am his son. I want to see Imperial Father feel a bit of guilt, said Hua Chunwang. Ningshu had a smile on his face. Imperial Mother's Chunwang has grown up. However, even if some people hurt others, they don't feel it. Even if they feel that they hurt others, they still won't take it to heart. After Hua Chunwang finished a bowl of porridge, he lay down to rest. Ningshu saw that he was still crying under the blankets. Ningshu sighed in his heart. He casually ate a bit of food and kept watch by the bed. Nyang Nyang. Madam has handed over a token and wants to enter the palace to see the little prince. Qingzhu whispered into Ningshu's ear. Ningshu waved his hand. Tell them not to hand over tokens to the palace for now. Don't let women enter the palace for a while. Qingyang will stay in the palace. Given Chunwang's current situation, he should have a companion by his side. Tell Mother not to worry. Ben Gong will protect Qingyang. Qingzhu left with a worried expression on her face. After breakfast, Xiao Qingyang came over to keep watch, waiting for his little cousin to wake up. Ning Shu didn't want to see the concubines at all. He wasn't in the mood at all. The concubines sent over a lot of things. Ning Shu had Qingzhu stuff them into the storeroom, without even looking at them. At noon, Wuxia finally found out that his son was sick. He came over with a cold expression. Ning Shu felt his balls ache. If he didn't want to come, then so be it. Wuxia asked Ning Shu, "Why didn't you tell Jin that Chunwang was sick?" If the Empress's father hadn't asked about the little prince's health during the morning court session, he wouldn't have known that Chunwang was sick. Wuxia instantly felt that his dignity was being challenged. He was the master of the imperial palace. Someone else actually knew what was happening at home before he did. Everyone outside knew what was happening in the imperial palace. What did they think the imperial palace was? When Ning Shu heard Wuxia's words, he became a Spartan. He had never seen such a shameless person. He scared his son until he fell ill. And now he was questioning him. Ning Shu was roaring in his heart. But on the surface, he looked tired and anxious to explain. Chunwang got sick late at night, so Qinxia didn't disturb your majesty. You should have sent someone to tell Zhen in the morning. When he was questioned by his father-in-law, Wuxia was almost dumbfounded. This made Wuxia very unhappy. Ning Shu said indifferently, "Qinxia didn't sleep all night. My mind was really muddled. I forgot to send someone to tell your majesty. It was Qinxia's fault." Wuxia was speechless for a moment. He sat by the bed and looked at the sleeping Chunwang. He asked, "How is he now?" "Much better," Ning Shu said. Wuxia's expression was not good. He said coldly, "As my child, he actually got sick over such a small matter. How can he be worthy of being my son?" Ning Shu. "Fuck your mother, fuck, you speak as if your son wasn't human. He wasn't made of flesh and blood, and wouldn't be sad. In the end, he just didn't care. If the child on the bed was his, and the little fox's child, he would probably be roaring and chopping off the imperial physician's head." Ning Shu's mouth twitched. She said indifferently, "Qinxia will take good care of Chunwang." Wuxia dilly-dallied for a while before leaving. It didn't even take the time to drink a cup of tea. He probably went back to find the little fox. He was afraid that the little fox would be angry. With Ning Shu accompanying him day and night, and Xiao Qingyang watching over him, Chunwang's illness took more than a month to recover. After enduring for a month, Ning Shu felt that he had lost weight. Wuxia only came once. He didn't come at all other times. He felt very cold. He was so cold to his own child. Chunwang didn't ask if his father came to see him again. Ning Shu felt that Chunwang had changed a lot. He was no longer as lively and playful as before. Now, Ning Shu didn't have to say anything. He would study on his own. Ning Shu often counseled Chunwang. In the past, he tried to think of ways to get Chunwang to study. Now he wanted Chunwang to pay attention to the balance between work and rest. Being a mother was so hard. Chapter 237. Ning Shu's mind had been focused on Chunwang during this time, so he rarely asked about the affairs of the imperial harem. He asked Qingzhu, "What happened recently?" Qingzhu thought for a moment and said, "Actually, it's nothing much. It's just that the emperor's pets like to go to the palaces of the imperial concubines and break things, which annoys the imperial concubines. They originally wanted to ask the imperial concubines for justice, but this servant pushed them away. The imperial concubines went to the emperor and were scolded by the emperor. Wasn't this asking for a rebuff? With Wuxia's love for the little fox, even if the imperial palace was burned down, it would be fine. These imperial concubines were also stupid. They simply set up rat traps in the palace like she did. If they were caught, they deserved it. It wasn't that these imperial concubines didn't think of it, but they didn't dare to. Before hitting a dog, one had to look at its master. This fox's master was the emperor, so they could only swallow it. It was quite hard to get to this point, but it didn't make sense for them to live so comfortably. Wuxia hadn't visited the imperial concubines in a long time. These imperial concubines were bored and wanted to find something to do to pass the time. Noble consort Xian came to invite Ning Shu to watch a play. Ning Shu wasn't interested in the play, but thinking of the two little radishes, he agreed to go see the play tomorrow. Noble consort Xian told Ning Shu about the play. After hesitating, Ning Shu asked, Imperial concubine, is there something wrong with the emperor's body? Why is he unwilling to let the imperial concubines in the imperial harem serve him? Now, it had developed to the point where even the 15th day of the month was in the imperial concubine's palace. This made the imperial concubines in the imperial harem feel distressed. There's something wrong with his body. You think there's something wrong with the emperor's body? Ning Shu raised his eyebrows and asked. Noble consort Xian's face immediately turned red. She remembered the last time the emperor slept with her. He was very fierce, and there was no problem at all. Then why is the emperor unwilling to enter the imperial harem? Noble consort Xian frowned and asked. Could it be that the emperor is hiding a woman, a vixen? Ning Shu, it really is a vixen. The next day, Ning Shu took her 2 children, Hua Chunwang and Xiao Qingyang, with a long line of palace maids following behind them, to the stage. When they arrived, there were already many concubines waiting. Ning Shu immediately bowed. Ning Shu held Hua Chunwang's hand and said with a smile, Sit down. Nyang Nyang, you should act. Imperial concubine Xian handed the list of tricks to Ning Shu. Ning Shu took it and smiled at Hua Chunwang. Chunwang, what do you like? Hua Chunwang looked at it, and finally chose a drama about King Wu defeating King Zhou. It was a story about overthrowing the tyrannical and muddle-headed King Zhou. Ning Shu raised her eyebrows and glanced at Hua Chunwang. She must be thinking too much. How could a little radish like Hua Chunwang have this kind of awareness now? Ning Shu casually chose a play and gave it to Imperial concubine Xian. Then the concubines all chose the plays they liked. As Ning Shu listened to the babbling and singing, her mind began to race. She thought about things and occasionally looked at Hua Chunwang, who was watching the play with great interest. While the concubines were watching happily, Hua Qing was reviewing memorials in the imperial study. The little fox sat on the table bored. She used her claws to poke at the memorials on the table. Listening to the gongs and drums outside, it was very lively. She didn't want to stay in this boring study. Hua Qing put down the cinnabar pen and looked at the little fox's dispirited appearance. He patted her head and said, Do you want to go and take a look? The little fox quickly nodded and looked at Hua Qing with great desire. She kept blinking her eyes and acting cute, hoping that Hua Qing would let her go. Isn't it just watching a play? Zhen will take you there. Hua Qing's body heated up under the little fox's gaze. Hua Qing quickly picked up the little fox, afraid that he would lose control under such a gaze. Now the other party's gaze was enough to make him panic. It was simply torture. Hua Qing's eyes were deep. He looked at the little fox in his arms who was looking around. Was there a way to turn the little fox into a human? The emperor has arrived. The eunuch's shrill voice sounded. No one thought that Hua Qing would suddenly come. The concubines' faces were filled with extreme joy. Hua Qing's arrival caused a commotion. The concubines quickly tidied up their clothes and adjusted the hairpin in their hair. In short, they wanted to be in their best state to welcome Hua Qing. Ning Shu was very curious why Hua Qing had suddenly come to the back palace. But then she saw the little golden fox in Hua Qing's arms, and her heart suddenly had a bad feeling. She really didn't want to be in the same frame as the female lead. Whenever the female lead appeared, something would happen. Chunxia pays respects to the emperor. Ning Shu bowed to Hua Qing. Chunxia pays respects to the emperor. The concubines also bowed. Chunxia pays respects to Fu Huang. Hua Chunwang obediently bowed to Hua Qing. Hua Qing looked Hua Chunwang up and down and said, Even if your body is better, don't run around. Yes, Chunxia will remember. Hua Chunwang was very obedient. He glanced at the little fox in Hua Qing's arms, bit his lip, and finally looked away. The little fox was held in Hua Qing's arms. Seeing these concubines flirting with each other, it felt very uncomfortable. Thinking that these people were all Hua Qing's women, the little fox cursed Hua Qing in its heart. It regretted coming to watch the show. The little fox's eyes widened. It bared its teeth and whimpered at these concubines. Hua Qing coldly grunted. He sat in the chair and said indifferently, You guys continue to watch the show. Don't mind Zhen. Ning Shu sat next to Hua Qing. The little fox immediately bared its teeth at Ning Shu. Its eyes were filled with unfriendliness and disdain. Ning Shu looked at her indifferently. Fuck. One day I'll skin you and make you into a scarf. The little fox's hair stood on end under Ning Shu's gaze. She was indeed a vicious woman. On the surface, she appeared gentle and considerate, but she was a hypocrite. She really pitied Huiqing. These concubines in the harem were all here for glory and wealth. Which one of them truly loved Huiqing? The stage was singing, but all the concubines' attention was on Huiqing. Huiqing didn't say anything. He stroked the little fox's golden fur. He didn't want to pay attention to anyone, but he couldn't resist the concubine's enthusiasm. He desperately tried to find a topic to talk about. Your Majesty, this fox is really beautiful. A concubine wearing a pink palace dress said sweetly to Huiqing. Her smile was like a flower. Ning Shu looked at her. She was just a beauty. She was basically not favored. She probably had to muster up her courage to take a gamble. What an ugly smile. The little fox was annoyed. It gently scratched Huiqing's palm with its claws. Don't look, don't look. What's so good about this woman? This concubine has many furs, but none of them are as beautiful as this one. Beauty Lin continued. Ning Shu wanted to cover his face. He sighed in his heart. He had flattered the wrong horse. Chapter 238. This beauty wanted to praise the little fox's beauty, but she used the fur in her closet as a comparison. Not all the concubines in the harem were scheming, and there were some who were naive and sweet. When the little fox heard the word fur, all the fur on its body stood up, and it shrieked at the beauty. Huiqing looked coldly at Beauty Lin, and comforted the little fox. He said gently, "It's fine. With me here, no one will dare to do anything to you." The concubines were stunned when they saw Huiqing's gentle appearance. They had never seen the emperor so gentle. It could melt their hearts, but this gentleness was directed at a beast. Envy, jealousy, and hatred were scratching their hearts and lungs. With Huiqing's assurance, the little fox raised its chin proudly. It still felt angry, so it jumped down from Huiqing's body and onto Beauty Lin. It reached out its claws and messed up her hair. Beauty Lin screamed. Beauty Lin screamed. She was in a sorry state. The little fox was very pleased. Look, all of them were pretending to be nice all the time. Now they were all exposed. Bad woman. She even wanted to skin it. She was simply vicious. Don't think that she didn't know what this woman was thinking. The little fox raised its claws and scratched at Beauty Lin's face. Immediately, several bloody wounds appeared on Beauty Lin's face. Beauty Lin fell to the ground in pain. She covered her face with her hands. Blood flowed through the gaps between her fingers. My face, my face. Ning Shu stood up and wanted to call for an imperial physician, but Huiqing spoke first. Beauty Lin has been disrespectful in front of the palace. She will be demoted to Yeting. This was only a beauty, so Huiqing didn't care at all. If it was the empress or other concubines with strong family backgrounds, he would definitely not do this. Kill the chicken to warn the monkey. First, it was for Huer. He wanted her to be at ease and know that no one in the palace could hurt her. Second, it was to warn these women that this fox was his, and he wouldn't let these concubines hurt Huer. The little fox raised its head and walked proudly towards Huiqing. She was enforcing justice on behalf of the heavens. Don't think that she didn't know this beauty had a bad temper in private. She once saw this beauty scolding and beating a palace, made just because she did something wrong. Being banished to the cold palace could be considered retribution. The little fox jumped into Huiqing's arms. Huiqing tapped the tip of her pink nose and said, "You little thing." His affection for her was obvious. Ning Shu was speechless. Huiqing was willing to do anything to make the beauty smile. Looking at the smug look on the little fox's face, he was really a fox exploiting the tiger's might to the fullest. Her face was ruined, and she was banished to the cold palace. Beauty Lin was stunned on the spot. It wasn't until a guard came to take her off that she reacted. She screamed in horror. Your Majesty, this concubine is innocent. This concubine was wrong. Your Majesty, please forgive this concubine." Beauty Lin's clothes were taken off, and her face was covered in blood. She looked particularly miserable. Everyone was on tenterhooks. They weren't happy because there was one less person to compete with. Instead, they felt a sense of sadness. To end up like this because of an animal was simply ridiculous. Ugh. Noble consort Xian, who was sitting below Ning Shu, covered her mouth and vomited when she saw the bloodied beauty Lin being dragged away. Noble consort Xian wanted to hold it in, but she vomited even more violently. Ning Shu's eyes flashed when he saw noble consort Xian like this. He hurriedly said to Qing Zhu, "Quickly call the imperial physician over. The noble consort isn't feeling well." Noble consort Xian looked like she was pregnant. "Find another imperial physician to take a look at Beauty Lin," Ning Shu said quietly. It wasn't a big deal. Ning Shu was willing to help. Qing Zhu nodded and left. Everyone looked at noble consort Xian with envy. Qing seemed to have guessed it too. He frowned and subconsciously hugged the little fox in his arms. The imperial physician hurried over. Before he could bow, Ning Shu said, "No need for formalities. Take a look at the noble consort's body first." Yes. The imperial physician hurriedly took noble consort Xian's pulse. Qing's face darkened. He was clearly unhappy with Ning Shu's actions. Qing really regretted it now. He had impulsively taken advantage of noble consort Xian. If he hadn't been so tempted by Huer, he wouldn't have taken advantage of a consort. "Congratulations, Your Majesty. Congratulations, noble consort Xian. You're almost 2 months pregnant." The imperial physician withdrew his hand and said with a smile. Qing's heart tightened. He didn't say anything. Ning Shu smiled at the surprised noble consort Xian and said, "How come you didn't realize you were pregnant?" "Your Majesty, my period was irregular. I didn't mind. I didn't think I would be pregnant." Noble consort Xian's eyes were watery. She hadn't been pregnant since she entered the palace. This sudden surprise almost made her faint. This should be the only time Qing had taken advantage of a consort recently. She didn't think he would be so lucky. "Since you know, you should take good care of yourself and give Chunwang a little brother," Ning Shu said with concern. "Thank you, Your Majesty, for your concern." Noble consort Xian touched her belly with a loving expression. She then said to Qing, "Your Majesty, I will take good care of myself and give birth to a child." "Congratulations, Your Majesty. Congratulations, Your Majesty." All the consorts suppressed their jealousy and congratulated noble consort Xian. Noble consort Xian was so happy that she almost cried. There was a joyous atmosphere all around. However, when little fox found out that noble consort Xian was pregnant, her entire fox was stunned. Her heart was pounding. She was filled with anger and anger. When she saw the smile on the empress face, she thought bitterly, "What a hypocrite. Your husband is pregnant with another woman, and you're so happy. You want to kill someone, but you're still pretending to be smiling. What a hypocritical woman." It was simply disgusting. Little fox was very sad. The empress had Chunwang before she met Qing. But now, Qing doted on her while he was pregnant with another woman. Little fox felt betrayed. Her heart was very small and could only fit one man. But she also wanted that man to only have her in his heart. Qing was the emperor and she was a pet. She took him seriously just because he teased her. Qing panicked when he saw the little fox crying. Little fox jumped out of Qing's arms and looked at noble consort Xian, who was smiling like a flower. She was so sad, but the other party was so happy. Little fox pounced at noble consort Xian, and noble consort Xian's stomach was hit by little fox. Qing frowned and looked at little fox. Little fox looked at Qing stubbornly. Seeing the shock and disapproval in Qing's eyes, little fox's heart ached. She turned and ran away. They were all liars. She shouldn't have trusted men, little fox thought angrily. Qing wanted to chase after little fox, but the situation was so chaotic that he couldn't just leave. Chapter 239. Imperial concubine Xian, who was hit in the stomach, held her stomach and screamed. It happened so fast that no one could react. Only when they heard Imperial concubine Xian's painful moan did they see that Imperial concubine Xian's dress was red. "Quick, doctor, check on the Imperial concubine, and try to hold the baby," Ning Shu quickly said to the doctor. Imperial concubine Xian was sitting on a chair. Her dress was stained with blood. Her face was very pale and she was crying. She reached out her hand to Qing. Qing hesitated and held Imperial concubine Xian's hand. Seeing that Imperial concubine Xian was very weak, Qing said in despair, Emperor, please save our child. Huiqing didn't say anything. He just nodded. Imperial concubine Xian's face was getting paler. Even with the doctor's acupuncture, the bleeding couldn't stop. Ning Shu watched from the side and shook his head. Imperial concubine Xian couldn't keep the baby. Emperor, Imperial concubine Xian's body was very weak. She couldn't get pregnant. The baby was unstable and was hit hard. I am useless. Imperial concubine Xian has had a miscarriage. The doctor knelt on the ground and kowtowed. Imperial concubine Xian endured the pain and fainted. She didn't know anything. Huiqing's face flashed with a strange joy, but it quickly disappeared. He coldly said to the doctor, "Do your best to nurse Imperial concubine Xian's body back to health. No matter what medicine you use it. You must nurse Imperial concubine Xian's body back to health." "I will remember." The doctor saw that Huiqing didn't blame him and wiped away his cold sweat. "Emperor, it is windy in the garden. Take Imperial concubine Xian back to her palace," Ning Shu said to Huiqing. Huiqing's face was a bit strange. He hesitated a bit before carrying Imperial concubine Xian to her palace. Ning Shu saw Huiqing's hesitant face and despised him. He was happy to hug an animal, but when he was asked to hug his woman, he acted like he was a germaphobe. "Chengwang, go back first." Ning Shu asked Qing Zhu to take the two children back. Chengwang grabbed Ning Shu's clothes. Ning Shu asked, "What is it?" "Mother, be careful," Chengwang quietly said to Ning Shu. "Father smiled just now." Ning Shu was slightly stunned and asked, "When?" Her attention was all on Imperial concubine Xian, so she didn't notice Huiqing's expression. It was when the imperial physician said that Imperial consort Nyangnyang's child couldn't be saved that this son saw the corners of Imperial father's mouth curl up. Chengwang frowned. "Mother, you have to believe me. I really saw it. Imperial mother believes in you." Ning Shu patted Chengwang's head. "Quickly go back with Qingzhu." Ning Shu caught up with Huiqing and glanced at Huiqing's side profile. His side profile was very cold, which made his facial features even more deep and charming. However, Ning Shu felt a chill in his heart. He actually smiled when his woman had a miscarriage. Soon, they arrived at Imperial concubine Xian's bedroom. Huiqing placed the unconscious Imperial concubine Xian on the bed, and then said to the Imperial physician, "Treat Imperial concubine Xian well." Huiqing stood by the bed, but his eyes kept looking outside the hall. Ning Shu said, "Empress, Zhen still has matters to attend to. You stay here with Imperial concubine Xian. If there is anything, send someone to report to Zhen." Ning Shu didn't even want to look at Huiqing. She lowered her head and said, "Emperor, Imperial concubine Xian's miscarriage wasn't an accident. She was hit in the stomach by a little fox. Chenxia feels that an explanation should be given to Imperial concubine Xian. The little fox harmed the Imperial heir, and shouldn't be let off so easily." The other concubines in the hall looked at each other and didn't speak. They all looked at Huiqing. Huiqing's face twitched. He waved his sleeve and said, "We'll talk about this later." "Emperor." Ning Shu raised her head and looked at Huiqing. "Emperor, Imperial concubine Xian's stomach is also your child. That fox killed your child. Why don't you seek justice for Imperial concubine Xian and the child? It's just an animal. Just beat it to death." "Shut up." Huiqing couldn't help but interrupt Ning Shu's words. Then he realized that he had lost control of his emotions. He lowered his voice and said, "Zhen will compensate the Empress for this matter. As for the little fox, it's just an animal that doesn't know anything. Can Zhen's child come back if I beat it to death? Wouldn't Zhen be sad to lose the child?" Compensate Imperial concubine Xian. But the culprit was completely fine. He was so cold. Even though Ning Shu had experienced several worlds, she couldn't help but feel a chill in her heart. Even a vicious tiger wouldn't eat its cubs. And Huiqing actually wanted this child to disappear, so that it wouldn't affect his relationship with the little fox. If he wasn't cold and heartless to other women, it seemed that he couldn't show his affection for the female lead. Ning Shu suppressed the anger in her heart and said faintly, "Chenxia understands. Take care, Emperor." Huiqing turned and left. His back was a bit embarrassed. "Empress, are we just going to let it go like this?" Concubine Ning Shu asked. Ning Shu waved her hand. "You can go back. If you have nothing to do, Stay in your palace and don't wander around. Yes. The concubines retreated, but everyone's expression was very gloomy. If a concubine had a miscarriage before, of course they would gloat. But now, everyone's heart was weighed down by a stone, and it was heavy with uneasiness. Basin after basin of bloody water was carried out. After a long time, the imperial physician came out of the side hall. Ning Shu asked, "How is imperial concubine Xian?" The imperial physician shook his head. Imperial concubine Xian's body is severely damaged. It will be difficult for her to get pregnant in the future. Ning Shu sighed. The palace was really a gloomy place. Ning Shu said, "Try to nurse her back to health. No matter what medicine is used, it will do. Even His Majesty said so." The imperial physician nodded. Ning Shu walked into the bedchamber. There was a strong smell of blood inside. Imperial concubine Xian was lying on the bed with her hair disheveled. Her face was as white as paper, and her complexion was very poor. Her exposed shoulders looked very thin, making people feel pity for her. Ning Shu sat by the bed and took a handkerchief to wipe the cold sweat on imperial concubine Xian's forehead. The little fox was lucky to have Huaqing's lifelong love. But what about the women in the harem? How cruel was he to so many women in the harem? If he didn't like her, then he shouldn't have chosen so many women to enter the palace. Such a beautiful woman might be happier if she married someone else. "Empress, let me do it," imperial concubine Xian's maid Ning Shu said. Ning Shu nodded and gave the handkerchief to imperial concubine Xian's personal maid. "Empress, the smell of blood in this hall is very strong. Please move," the maid Ning Shu said. The maid's eyes were red as she endured the pain. Ning Shu said indifferently, "It's fine. I will wait here for imperial concubine Xian to wake up." Qingju sent the two children back, and then came over. She stood beside Ning Shu and waited for imperial concubine Xian to wake up. "Qingju, pour me a glass of water." Ning Shu felt very thirsty. Imperial concubine Xian woke up at night. When she saw Ning Shu by her bedside, she was stunned for a moment. Then she hurriedly touched her stomach and cried, "My child, my child, my child." Her voice was like a blood-sobbing cuckoo, sorrowful and desperate. Chapter 240. Lady Xian was devastated. When her emotions stabilized, Ning Shu wanted to comfort her. But when the words came out of his mouth, he didn't know what to say. Could it be that she would have a child in the future? First of all, Lady Xian's body was injured, so it would be difficult for her to get pregnant. Secondly, Wuxia had to keep his chastity for the little fox. He didn't even want to enter the harem. Lady Xian's body was very weak. After a heart-wrenching cry, her body trembled. Her forehead was covered in cold sweat, and her hair was wet. How did the emperor deal with that fox? "My child is gone. I just learned of his existence and he's gone." Lady Xian hammered her chest with her hand, tears streaming down her face. This was the plane's cannon fodder. They decorated the lives of the protagonists, but they were also flesh and blood. They could feel pain and sadness. Ning Shu sighed and said, "The body is the foundation. Without a good body, how can you take revenge?" Lady Xian looked at Ning Shu and sneered. She said sarcastically and sadly, "You must be very happy right now." "Why would I be happy? Something like this is not something to be happy about." Ning Shu raised his eyebrows and said in surprise. Lady Xian smiled sadly. "I don't have a child now. Your child is no longer a threat. Your Highness, I'm tired. I want to rest." Ning Shu said indifferently, "Let's not talk about whether the child in your belly is a boy or a girl. Even if it's born, it won't be a threat to me. I'm the Empress, and my child is the eldest son. As long as I don't make any mistakes and my child doesn't make any big mistakes, my child will be the first in line to the throne. Besides, I still have the marshal's mansion behind me." Xiao Xiao had such a good card in her hand, yet she ended up in the end. It was only love and jealousy that made her lose her mind. If Xiao Xiao had been more rational and ruthless, she wouldn't have ended up like this. If a woman wasn't ruthless, her status wouldn't be stable. Xiao Xiao could only blame herself for falling in love with an emperor. Not everyone was a little fox who could turn a cold and hard emperor into a soft and gentle one. Imperial concubine Xian was stunned by Ning Shu's straightforward words. Her body trembled even more violently, and she cried silently. It was even more heartbreaking than before. Her face was filled with despair, indifference and sadness. Ningxu said, "The emperor will give the Grand Preceptor's mansion an explanation. He will compensate you." Noble consort Xian was the granddaughter of the Grand Preceptor, who had assisted 2 generations of emperors. Although she had retired, she was still very influential in the imperial court. "Compensation? My child is gone. Can you return my child and let my child come back to life? I've been waiting for this child for countless years, but I still haven't felt his existence." Seeing that the imperial consort was crying, Ningxu questioned, "Please forgive me, Your Highness. My imperial consort is too sad." "She didn't mean to offend Your Highness," Imperial consort Xian's personal maid explained hurriedly. Ningxu waved his hand and didn't care. The personal maid said to Imperial consort Xian, "Your Highness, before you woke up, the Empress wanted to seek justice for you in front of the Emperor. She wanted to kill the little fox, but the Emperor didn't agree." Imperial consort Xian was stunned for a moment, and then she said, "Thank you, Your Highness. You and I are both women. I can understand your pain," Ningxu said. "Have a good rest." Imperial consort Xian was helped to lie down by the maid. At this moment, the sound of hurried footsteps came from outside the palace garden. Ningxu and Qingzhu said, "Go out and see what happened." Yes. Qingzhu went out for a while, and then came back in. She glanced at Imperial consort Xian on the bed without saying anything. Imperial consort Xian said in a hoarse voice, "Tell me what happened. I am just a person who is waiting to die. What can't I accept?" "Your Highness," Qingzhu said to Ningxu, "there are Imperial guards outside." "Imperial guards? Why are they walking in the palace so late at night?" Ningxu frowned. Qingzhu glanced at Imperial consort Xian and said, "I heard that the little fox disappeared in the afternoon. They haven't found her yet. The Emperor is worried, so he sent people to look for her." "Ha!" Ningxu sneered. Imperial consort Xian clutched the quilt so tightly that her knuckles turned white. Tears flowed down from the corners of her eyes. Ningxu really thought that Huqing was as cold as a beast. His woman had a miscarriage, but he still cared about the little fox who made a mistake. Imperial consort Xian, take care of yourself. There will be a good show to watch in the future. If you want to take revenge, you have to take care of yourself," Ningxu said to Imperial consort Xian. "Even if you are sad to death now, no one will care." Ningxu stood up and patted Imperial consort Xian's cold hands. "Get up. You will see what you want to see. Let's do it together." "Farewell, Your Highness. This concubine will remember what Your Highness the Empress said today." Imperial consort Xian looked at Ningxu with a determined look. There was a burning light in her eyes, a flame of hatred. Ningxu turned and walked out of Imperial consort Xian's palace. Walking in the Imperial garden, he saw Imperial guards holding lanterns and shuttling between the fake mountains and trees. Obviously, they were looking for the little fox. Ningxu curled his lips. Since they loved each other so much, he would let them be together in the future. "Your Highness, does the little fox know some sorcery? Why is the Emperor like this?" Qingzhu felt strange. "Sorcery? Perhaps," Ningxu said ambiguously. When Ningxu returned to her palace, Huqing was still waiting for her. Ningxu felt as if a fire had been lit in her heart. She felt warm. She didn't treat this child as her own. She just wanted him to stop running around and causing trouble with the little fox. However, this child returned her sincere feelings. "Chungwang, it's so late. Why aren't you sleeping?" Ningxu asked the 2 children. "Go to sleep." Seeing that his mother had returned, Huqing let out a sigh of relief. He said, "There is always a commotion outside. I can't sleep." If he was waiting, then he was waiting. Why did he have to find an excuse? Ningxu rubbed Huqing's forehead. "Mother, is Imperial consort Xian all right?" Huqing asked. "Does Chungwang not have a little brother or sister?" Ningxu nodded. Huqing was a bit disappointed. He asked Ningxu, "I feel that Imperial father has changed. He has changed so much that I almost can't recognize him." Love can change people. Ningxu drank a mouthful of water. "It's late. Go to sleep. Love." Hua Chunwang looked at Ning Shu in confusion. Mother, what are you talking about? What love? Your imperial father is like a young boy who has fallen in love. Ning Shu said with a smile. He had done something unbelievable for the person he liked. Hua Chunwang continued to ask. Imperial father's love with who? Go to sleep. Mother is tired. Ning Shu didn't want to talk about this with Hua Chunwang. Chapter 241. Little Fox was caught by the guards. When she was brought to Huaqing, her fur was covered in grass and dust. When she saw Huaqing, tears fell from her eyes. Huaqing's heart ached. He quickly patted the dust off Little Fox and hugged her. He said in a trembling voice, You little thing, are you trying to scare me to death? Little Fox couldn't escape from Huaqing's embrace. However, she was angry and didn't make a sound. Liar, they were all liars. She had to be crazy to believe an emperor. He had 72 concubines in his harem. What was she? Little Fox felt very uncomfortable. You little thing. How dare you get angry at me and run away after causing trouble? Imperial concubine Xian had a miscarriage because of you. Huaqing said helplessly with a frown. He was clearly troubled by this matter. He regretted sleeping with Imperial concubine Xian and getting her pregnant. Huaqing felt guilty, as if he had betrayed Little Fox. Little Fox's body stiffened when she heard that she had a miscarriage. She had a miscarriage because she couldn't stand the smug look on the pregnant Imperial concubine's face. She had a miscarriage because she was too weak. Women in ancient times were very delicate and didn't step out of the house. Little Fox thought so, but she was still very afraid. She had caused the death of an unborn life. Little Fox was still very afraid. She quickly looked at Huaqing, thinking that he was teasing her. Huaqing sighed and stroked Little Fox's fur. He said, It's true. She really had a miscarriage. Her pregnancy was unstable, and she miscarried after you bumped into her. However, her body was weak to begin with. Don't blame yourself too much. Little Fox began to cry again. How could this be? Huaqing quickly wiped her tears and said, This is my fault. I shouldn't have slept with her and gotten her pregnant. I know you are angry. I will take care of this matter. You don't have to worry. Little Fox was convinced. Who was Huaqing? He was the emperor, the most powerful person in the world. Imperial concubine Xian was just a woman. Little Fox felt guilty because of her mistake. She immediately stuck out her tongue and licked Huaqing's finger. She looked at Huaqing with sincere and cute eyes. You can't run around in the future. If you disappear like this again, we will tie you to my side and not allow you to take a step away from me. Huaqing said sternly. Although Huaqing's words were terrifying, the little fox's heart was filled with sweetness. She stuck out her tongue and licked Huaqing's lips. Huaqing's eyes deepened as he stared at the little fox's tongue. In the end, he looked away and said, But this matter must be explained to the imperial consort. Otherwise, the empress and the imperial consort will not let this matter rest. The little fox's eyes widened when she heard that. It wasn't that hypocritical empress who had miscarried. Why would she need an explanation? These women just couldn't stand her and wanted to kill her. They look incomparably beautiful on the outside, but they are all beautiful snakes. Huaqing will be stung to death by these beautiful scorpions sooner or later. Who asked you to be lecherous? Who asked you to be a stud? Who asked you to have so many women in your harem? The little fox nodded. She wouldn't be angry. Looking at Huaqing's tired appearance, the little fox's heart softened. This man protected her, but he also had moments when he was weak. In front of her, he seemed to have all his defenses down and revealed his softest inner self. The little fox stuck out her pink tongue and licked Huaqing's cheeks to comfort him. Huaqing doted on her, so she should treat him well. All right, you little thing. He hugged the little fox and didn't let her lick his face anymore. He endured it with great difficulty, but it seemed that the little fox didn't notice at all. It seemed like she especially liked this kind of intimate action. It was really painful and happy. The next morning, Huaqing issued an edict to promote Imperial Consort Xian's position. Imperial Consort Xian was promoted from Imperial Consort Xian to Imperial Consort Xian. This position was close to that of the Empress. She was the #1 position after the Empress. Not only was her position promoted, But she was also rewarded with many rare treasures and precious nourishing holy items. It was all done before the court. When Ningxu heard this news, he thought that Huqing had already compensated the imperial tutor's residents in order to shut their mouths. The imperial tutor's residents couldn't say anything. After Ningxu had breakfast, he went to see Imperial Consort Xian. No, it was Imperial Consort Xian now. Walking into the palace, Ningxu saw palace maids tidying up the things that Huqing had sent over. In the bedroom, Imperial Consort Xian was sitting on the bed and drinking medicine. Imperial Consort Xian's expression was indifferent. She didn't feel anything about these rare treasures. She also didn't look happy about being promoted to Imperial Consort. When she saw Ningxu come, she bowed respectfully to Ningxu. This concubine greets the Empress. At least your position was promoted, Ningxu said. Imperial Consort Xian didn't say anything and drank the medicine in one breath. She looked at Ningxu and asked, Empress, can this concubine trust you? Of course you can. Ningxu nodded. Imperial Consort Xian then shook her head. You and the Emperor are the original husband and wife. Although this concubine has a high position, I am still just a concubine. Husband and wife. Imperial Consort, do you think that this concubine and the Emperor are a loving couple? Ningxu said indifferently. This concubine is no different from you. In the Emperor's heart, there is no difference. In the Emperor's heart, you are just a wooden and inflexible concubine. She wasn't as lively and cute as the little fox. Huqing didn't have any feelings for the original owner of the body. Huqing and Xiao Xiao were together because of benefits. In the end, they still fell apart because of benefits. This concubine doesn't understand what the Empress means. Imperial Consort Xian, Ningxu asked. Imperial Consort Xian probably didn't know that the current Huqing liked a beast that had yet to transform into a human. After seeing Imperial Consort Xian, Ningxu went back. Some things had to be done slowly. The little fox was so arrogant because Huqing pampered it. Without Huqing, the little fox was just a beast that couldn't even control its own fate. If the person it met at the hunting grounds wasn't Huqing, but someone else, it would have been shot to death and turned into a woman's fur. Huqing was the little fox's only reliance. It was a huge golden finger. Ningxu walked to the door. After thinking for a while, she turned to look at Huqing. She pushed the door open and walked in. She saw that the little fox that was supposed to be in the imperial study was actually with Huqing. The little fox stood on a chair and looked at Huqing. Huqing pursed his lips tightly and stared at the little fox. When Ningxu saw this scene, she was shocked. Could it be that Huqing was still playing with the little fox? Mother. Seeing Ningxu walk in, Huqing quickly walked in front of Ningxu. Ningxu glanced at the little fox and asked Huqing, Chengwang, what are you doing? This son is practicing calligraphy, Huqing said. When the little fox saw that the two of them were talking and ignoring her, she suddenly felt very awkward. If she had known, she wouldn't have come. Chapter 242. The little fox originally didn't want to come to the Empress place. She didn't like the hypocritical Empress at all. She looked dignified and virtuous, but she was a black-hearted woman. Otherwise, why would she be the only one in the harem with children? Before the little fox transmigrated, she had read many novels and felt that the Empress must have given the other women something to prevent them from getting pregnant. The little fox felt quite guilty. After all, she quite liked Huqing, the fair and tender little boy. She felt like she was teasing a miniature version of Huqing. He was very cute. Today, she had come to apologize to Huqing, but he didn't seem to care about her. Then the Empress came again. The little fox felt uncomfortable. Huqing used to like her a lot, but now he was ignoring her. The little fox jumped off the table and ran away. Ningxu raised his eyebrows and asked, The little fox came to play with you? Auntie, this little fox is amazing. She can actually write. Xiao Qingyang handed the imperial edict to Ningxu. Ningxu took a look and saw the words "I'm sorry" written in a crooked claw. It was extremely ugly. She is quite smart. If she wasn't, imperial father wouldn't have doted on her so much. Ningxu threw the paper away and said without much care. Huqing raised his head and looked at Ningxu. Imperial mother, Why does imperial father like a fox and not this son? This son hates foxes. She killed this son's dog. This son is imperial father's son. Why doesn't imperial father like this son? Ning Shu suddenly didn't know how to answer Hu Chunwang. Was he supposed to tell him that he wasn't the child of imperial father's beloved woman? So of course he didn't like him? That would probably make his little heart bleed. Ning Shu crouched down and put his hand on Hu Chunwang's shoulder. He looked into Hu Chunwang's dark eyes and said seriously, Chunwang, Imperial Mother said that your imperial father is the emperor. Don't crave the feelings of an emperor. Qingyang, go to the kitchen and bring some snacks over. Ning Shu sent Xiao Qingyang away. Xiao Qingyang immediately went to look for food. Ning Shu and Hu Chunwang sat in their chairs. Ning Shu asked Hu Chunwang, Qingyang, what do you think is the most important thing for an emperor? I don't know. Hu Chunwang looked at Ning Shu with sparkling eyes. Ning Shu smiled and asked, Chunwang, what do you think an emperor should be like? 3 palaces and 6 courtyards? Call the wind and summon the rain. Emperors should be worshipped by all, Hu Chunwang said. Ning Shu pinched Hu Chunwang's face and said, That's right. The emperor should be worshipped by the people. The most important thing for an emperor is responsibility. The people support the entire royal family. And the emperor's responsibility is to make the people in the world live better. Hu Chunwang nodded as if he understood. Ning Shu knew Hu Chunwang didn't understand these things, so he asked Hu Chunwang, Does Chunwang want to be king? An emperor worshipped by all the people? Yes, I want to be king. I want to replace my father as the emperor. I want to protect my mother and the things I care about. Hu Chunwang clenched his fists, and his face was red. As an emperor, you can't like or care about things too much. Your father likes something too much, so much so that he has lost his basic vigilance and calmness. Ning Shu looked at Hu Chunwang and asked, What do you think your father is like now? Hu Chunwang bit his lip and whispered, He's a bit like an incapable emperor. Ning Shu nodded and changed the subject. In the future, put a rat trap in the house. Little Fox often runs around, so she might have heard what we said. Ning Shu poked Hu Chunwang's head. Think of a way yourself. Torture the little fox, so that she can't complain to your imperial father. Let her suffer in silence. Chunwang, think of a way to avenge the little dog. I will remember. Hu Chunwang nodded, and his eyes were heavy. At night, Hu Qing went to Imperial concubine Xian's palace. This time, little fox wasn't angry. She obediently waited in the royal study for Hu Qing to come back. Little fox knew that Imperial concubine Xian's body couldn't serve her, so she generously let Hu Qing go. Speaking of which, Imperial concubine Xian was now Imperial concubine Xian. Little Fox suspected that Imperial concubine Xian knew that she couldn't keep her child, so she blamed it on her. Little Fox only lightly bumped into Imperial concubine Xian, and she had a miscarriage. The women in the harem were really vicious. Hu Qing went to Imperial concubine Xian's palace and sat for a while before leaving. Before he left, he said a few words of concern to Imperial concubine Xian. Imperial concubine Xian's face was cold from beginning to end, but Hu Qing didn't care. He just thought that Imperial concubine Xian was too sad. In addition, because of Little Fox, Hu Qing thought that he had already compensated her and gave her a noble status. Imperial concubine Xian looked at Hu Qing's back and bit her lip tightly. Her hand clutched the blanket tightly, and her body was trembling. Imperial concubine, it's time to drink your medicine. A maid came in with the medicine. Imperial concubine Xian's face was cold. She took the bowl and drank the medicine in one breath. She angrily threw the empty bowl on the ground. With a bang, the broken pieces flew everywhere. Damned beast. Hu Qing came out of Imperial concubine Xian's palace and went to Ning Shu's palace. Ning Shu was surprised to see Hu Qing. What was he doing here instead of being intimate with Little Fox? This concubine pays respects to your majesty. Ning Shu bowed with a smile on his face, as if he was surprised that Hu Qing came. Hu Qing saw the smile on Ning Shu's face and felt a little sick in his heart. He regretted coming here. If Hu knew that he came here, she would be angry. As the empress, you need to take care of the harem. Imperial concubine just had a miscarriage, so take care of her. Hu Qing said a few words. then found an excuse to say that he had a memorial to review and left. Ning Shu almost vomited on Huiqing's face. He had never seen such a disgusting man. He really treated this mother like a housewife. Then they would be lovey-dovey and live a carefree life. He pushed a woman who had a miscarriage to her. Could she kill the emperor? Huiqing returned to the imperial study and saw little Fox waiting for him. Huiqing's heart warmed. He felt that in this cold palace, only Huer was special. She brought color to his lonely life. Huiqing was willing to pamper little Fox, and he brought everything to little Fox. Huiqing hugged little Fox and let her face him. He muttered to himself, "How good would it be if you were a human?" Little Fox stuck out her tongue and licked Huiqing's cheek. She also wanted to be a human, but the Transmigration god made her a fox. She didn't want a fox's body at all. Huer, Jin will definitely think of a way, Huiqing said firmly. Little Fox didn't understand what Huiqing meant for a moment, but she still licked Huiqing's cheek. Huangsang's skin was really good. Licking it felt like eating jelly. The texture was really good, especially the lips. If she was a human now, she would have eaten this guy until there was nothing left. Poor perverted woman like her could only watch. Chapter 243. Ning Shu stayed by Huiqingwang's side as he read. Ning Shu didn't want Huiqingwang to study the 4 books and 5 classics. Huiqingwang wasn't like those pedantic Confucian scholars who passed the imperial examinations. It was better for him to read Sun Tzu's Art of War and learn how to govern. Ning Shu originally wanted to find a teacher for Huiqingwang. But when she thought about how Huiqing was on guard against her and the marshal's mansion, she gave up on that idea for now. Qingzhu walked in and whispered into Ning Shu's ear. "Nyang Nyang, the marshal's mansion sent news." The marshal discovered that someone had placed something that shouldn't be there. The marshal has already destroyed it, but he didn't want to alert the enemy. The marshal said for Nyang Nyang to be careful and not let the cat out of the bag in front of His Majesty. Ning Shu nodded and told Huiqingwang not to stay. She went out with Xiao Qingyang for a stroll. Huiqingwang and Xiao Qingyang left with a sinister smile. Ning Shu looked at the 2 children's sinister expressions and couldn't help but raise her eyebrows. "Nyang Nyang, the marshal said that His Majesty is looking for a Taoist priest, an outsider," Qingzhu said. "The marshal suspects that His Majesty is going to eat pills now." Ning Shu immediately shook her head. Huiqing was still very young and didn't know how to eat pills to maintain his health. Huiqing was full of energy and didn't need to eat pills to overdraft his body's energy. The ancient emperors loved to eat pills because they wanted to be able to sleep with their concubines when they were old. Why would he suddenly look for a Taoist priest? Ning Shu's eyes darted around, and she thought of something. It was the little fox. According to the plot, the little fox should have transformed into a human by now. However, as soon as Ning Shu entered this world, she destroyed the mermaid pearl that allowed the little fox to transform into a human. Since the little fox didn't get this item, it naturally couldn't transform into a human. Huiqing couldn't hold it in anymore and wanted to find an expert to transform the little fox into a human. It seemed that the plot was still rushing forward and wouldn't look back. The little fox was destined to transform into a human. There was no way for the male and female leads to have sex. What kind of love could there be without physical interaction? "Tell grandfather that he doesn't need to care about the Taoist priests," Ning Shu said calmly. Huiqing could do whatever he wanted. However, Huiqing's act of hiring a Taoist priest still attracted some criticism. Many ministers in the imperial court told Huiqing not to indulge in these foreign techniques, but Huiqing ignored them. As long as he could turn Huer into a human, he could pay any price. Huiqing really wanted to see what Huer looked like when she turned into a human. She should be beautiful and lively, in sharp contrast to the women in the harem. Even her little temper was so cute. Little Fox didn't know about Huiqing's painstaking efforts and continued to wander around the palace every day. Huiqing also didn't tell her that he would give her a surprise when the time came. However, the little fox had been feeling very unlucky recently. She felt like someone was messing with her. While she was walking, a bucket of feces would fall on her, and even the bucket would fall on her. When she finally overturned the bucket, there was no one around her. Feeling wronged, The little fox went to find Huaqing with the smell of the 5 grains reincarnation item. Feeling wronged, the little fox directly jumped onto Huaqing and purposely rubbed against him. Huaqing endured the stench and didn't mind the little fox. The man and the fox went to take a bath together. Seeing Huaqing like this, the little fox's heart was filled with sweetness. She felt that Huaqing was the best person in the world to her. It was fine if it happened once, but it didn't stop. The little fox cried pitifully at Huaqing. Huaqing angrily said that he wanted to find out who dared to treat his Huer like this. Ningxu knew about this and hurriedly told the 2 boys to stop. If they continued to cause trouble, they would be caught sooner or later. Huaqing was refreshed. He even walked with the wind. Ningxu was more concerned about when the little fox turned into a human. When the little fox turned into a human, all the women in the harem would be completely abandoned. From then on, Huaqing only had the little fox in his heart. Ningxu asked Qing Zhu to pass a message to the marshal's residence, telling them to be careful. Huaqing hadn't come to the harem for a long time. The women in the harem stared in the direction of the imperial study until they were blind, but Huaqing still didn't show up. During this time something big happened. Beauty Lin, who was disfigured by the little fox and was banished to the Yi court by Huaqing, caught the little fox after a plan and stabbed the little fox in the stomach. When Huaqing found the little fox, Beauty Lin was stabbing the little fox like a madwoman. The little fox was screaming in pain, and its body was covered in blood. Huaqing's eyes were bloodshot. He pulled out a guard's knife and chopped off Beauty Lin's head. Beauty Lin's head rolled far away. Her scarred face was hideous. Huaqing hugged the bloody little fox and asked the imperial doctor and Taoist priest to save it. Woo! The little fox cried at Huaqing. The little fox felt like it was going to die. It was in so much pain. Huaqing's tears fell. He said in panic, "You will be fine. You will be fine. I won't allow anything to happen to you." Ningxu looked at Huaqing's decadent and crazy appearance. His body was trembling. It was as if he had lost the entire world. He collapsed and panicked. He smiled coldly. Ningxu stood beside the pale-faced imperial noble consort Xian. Although she had undergone meticulous treatment, her body was still very thin. She gave people the feeling that a gust of wind could blow her away. Her chin was much sharper. Imperial noble consort Xian was shocked to see Huaqing revealing his emotions. It was as if he wanted to destroy the world. "Let's go back. The emperor won't let us stay here." Ningxu stood at the entrance of the imperial study. He looked at the tightly shut door and turned to leave. Imperial noble consort Xian bit her lips and followed Ningxu. Ningxu looked at the pale-faced imperial noble consort Xian and said, "You did this. This concubine doesn't know what concubine is talking about." Imperial noble consort Xian's pale face revealed a smile. "This concubine has nothing to do with this. This was done by Beauty Lin." Imperial noble consort Xian said indifferently. Ningxu didn't say anything. Everyone knew who did this. At least Ningxu was gloating. There was only one word to describe it. Serves them right. The little fox was heavily injured. The imperial physician told Huaqing that there was no hope. Huaqing immediately covered his chest and spat out a mouthful of blood. This scared the imperial physician. Huaqing, who was angry and anxious, ordered the guards to kill the imperial physician, who said that the little fox was incurable. No matter how much the imperial physician begged, he couldn't change his fate. With the previous example, the other imperial physicians only focused on stopping the little fox's bleeding. They didn't dare to speak. At this moment, a Taoist priest came out and told Huaqing that this was the best time to transform the little fox into a human. If this dragged on, the little fox wouldn't be able to survive. Huaqing immediately acted as a Taoist priest. No matter what, he had to save the little fox's life. Huaqing pulled his hair in pain. Looking at the little fox who was about to die on the bed, he hated that he couldn't take the little fox's place. Such heart-wrenching pain. He didn't know why he was so deeply in love. Now, Huaqing realized that he had really fallen in love with the little fox. Furthermore, it had to be her. No one else could take her place. Thinking that the little fox might leave him, Huaqing wished that he could bury the entire palace with the little fox. Beauty Lin, that bitch, let her die too comfortably. She should be tortured to death. Chapter 244. Because of Huaqing, the entire palace was in a gloomy atmosphere. Everyone knew that the emperor's most beloved pet was almost killed by the concubines in the cold palace. Now the emperor wanted to kill whoever he caught. Everyone was in a state of panic. Ningxu didn't care. If the female lead died so easily, how could she be called a favored one with great luck? Imperial noble consort Xian was worried about her gains and losses. She found Ningxu and asked, "Empress, do you think that beast will die?" "No," Ningxu said indifferently. Imperial noble consort Xian frowned and said unwillingly, "It's injured so badly. How can it not die?" Ningxu took a sip and said leisurely, "The emperor will do everything to save her." "Can the emperor fight with the king of hell for a person?" Imperial noble consort Xian said somewhat indignantly. "Imperial noble consort, hearing you say this, why does this concubine feel so awkward? His Majesty treats that beast so well that it's unimaginable." "Let's see," Ningxu said. "I heard that the imperial tutor's body hasn't been well recently. I have 100-year-old ginseng here, for the imperial tutor to recuperate." Imperial noble consort Xian hesitated and said, "Grandfather is old. Although he isn't feeling well, he doesn't need ginseng." "Thank you, Empress." Ningxu didn't care about Imperial noble consort Xian's rejection. Imperial noble consort Xian and the imperial tutor would agree to her suggestion sooner or later. Huaqing had locked himself in his palace. He hadn't attended court for almost a month. This was something that had never happened before. The ministers were so anxious that their hair fell off. Every time he attended court, eunuch Qiu, who was by Huaqing's side, would tell him that the emperor wasn't feeling well and wouldn't be attending court. The ministers and concubines couldn't see Huaqing, so no one knew what was happening in his palace. Huaqing like this made everyone nervous. They didn't know what he was going to do. Ningxu guessed that it was because of the little fox's transformation into a human. Huaqing was really going to become an emperor who didn't want the country and wanted the beauty. Huaqing found Ningxu and asked, "What exactly is father doing? Why is he abandoning the matters of the court?" Ningxu looked at Huaqing, who now looked like a little adult, and could not help but say, "Chengwang really cares about the country and the people." "Mother, I'm serious," Huaqing said seriously. Ningxu nodded. "Imperial mother is also serious. You don't need to care about what your imperial father does." In the end, Huaqing sighed and left. Ningxu laughed when he saw the look on his face. "Nyang Nyang Shaoanzi, who serves His Majesty, is here." Qingzhu walked in and informed Ningxu. Ningxu immediately said, "Let him in." Shaoanzi walked in and bowed to Ningxu. Then he said, "Nyang Nyang, Master said that this servant will come to inform Nyang 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 tonight. Nyang Nyang will be rewarded. And thank your master for me." Ningxu had Qingzhu take out 2 silver ingots. Shaoanzi accepted it, and then bowed and left. Qingzhu and Ningxu asked, "Nyang Nyang, what is Shaoanzi talking about?" "You will know tonight." Ningxu already had a guess. Ningxu thought for a moment and said to Qingzhu, "Go and invite Imperial noble consort Xian over." "Yes." Imperial noble consort Xian quickly came over. When she saw Ningxu, she bowed and asked, "Nyang Nyang, why are you looking for me?" "Tonight, we will go and see His Majesty, and see if he is hiding a mistress." Ningxu said indifferently. Imperial noble consort Xian sat down and drank a mouthful of tea. Ningxu looked at Imperial noble consort Xian's frail body and said, "Your body doesn't seem to be well. I am not an imperial physician, but I can see that your body is severely damaged." "I don't care about my body anymore. I am just struggling at death's door. It doesn't matter if I am well or not." Imperial noble consort Xian said indifferently. Ningxu didn't agree. "You shouldn't ruin yourself for a man." Imperial noble consort Xian looked at Ningxu in shock and said, "I am sad for my unborn child." Ningxu and Imperial noble consort Xian waited like this. When it was almost midnight, the entire palace was silent. Shaoanzi finally came. Ningxu said, "Nyang Nyang, please follow me." Ningxu smiled and said to Imperial noble consort Xian, "Let's go and take a look." Xiao and Zi brought Ning Shu and Imperial Noble Consort Xian to Huiqing's bedroom. Imperial Noble Consort Xian asked Ning Shu softly, "Nyang Nyang, what are you doing?" "It's not what I am doing. It's what the Emperor is doing," Ning Shu said indifferently. Soon, the group arrived at Huiqing's bedroom. Eunuch Qiu was waiting for Ning Shu at the door. When he saw Ning Shu, he bowed and said quietly, "Nyang Nyang, please follow me." "Be quiet." Ning Shu nodded and followed behind Eunuch Qiu. Imperial Noble Consort Xian hurriedly followed Ning Shu. Eunuch Qiu found a secret place. This place could hear the situation in the bedroom and avoid being discovered by the guards. Ning Shu listened to the situation inside and heard Huiqing's voice and a woman's voice. Ning Shu understood. The little fox had transformed into a human body. The voices inside continued. Huiqing said, Having you is like having the world." A crisp female voice sounded. "Huiqing, have I really become an adult? I can't believe it." "It's true. My Huer. Huiqing's voice was filled with boundless affection. "Huiqing, what are you doing? Why are you kissing me? Don't you know how I feel about you?" Huiqing's voice was filled with suppressed desire. Not long after, she heard ambiguous voices coming from inside. It was mixed with Huiqing's words of love and the little fox's suppressed moans. As expected, Ning Shu had come to confirm the situation. It was similar to what she had expected. Even without her shark pearl, there were other ways for the little fox to transform into a human. After knowing the result, Ning Shu was no longer interested in eavesdropping. He quietly left. Imperial Noble Consort Xian immediately followed Ning Shu. Her face was filled with shock, and she hadn't recovered yet. After they had walked far away, Ning Shu asked, "Nyang Nyang, what is going on? His Majesty is really hiding a woman. Where did this woman come from? Hasn't this woman always been here?" Ning Shu said indifferently, "You can ask Xiaoan about this. Then you can consider the plan I told you." Imperial Noble Consort Xian was shocked. She seemed to have thought of something, but didn't dare to confirm it. She shook her head and said, "This is impossible." "Impossible? Anything can happen," Ning Shu said to Imperial Noble Consort Xian. "It's getting late. Let's go to bed." Imperial Noble Consort Xian couldn't sleep. Her mind was filled with the woman rolling around with Huiqing. Nyang Nyang, she was injured so badly. How could she have survived and become a human? Imperial Noble Consort Xian's eyes were filled with intense hatred. Ning Shu said, "It should be the work of those Taoists." Chapter 245. Although the little fox had transformed into a human, Huiqing did not let the little fox out and kept her in the bedroom. Ning Shu could not understand. Could it be that Huiqing had imprisoned the little fox for her entire life? According to the little fox's temperament, if he made her stay in the room and not let her out, wouldn't that be asking for her old life? But not long after, a palace maid found the corpse of an animal in the imperial garden. The animal had been skinned, revealing its bright red flesh. Flies were flying around the corpse. Ning Shu looked at the corpse. Its body was similar to the little fox's, so it should be a fox. Huiqing rushed over. When he saw the corpse, it was as if he was struck by lightning. He immediately roared, "Who is it? Who killed my little fox?" Huiqing's expression was very sorrowful. He frowned and coldly asked Ning Shu, "There is such a vicious person in the palace who actually killed my little fox. Empress, you must find the murderer. I want to skin him." "Fuck. Didn't your little fox already turn into a human? If this fox was really a little fox, you wouldn't have such an exaggerated performance now." Huiqing wanted the identity of the little fox to disappear. "Empress, I want you to find the murderer," Huiqing said through gritted teeth. Ning Shu said. Ning Shu bowed and respectfully said, "This concubine understands. This concubine will find the murderer." Ning Shu emphasized the word murderer. Huiqing even had people make an exquisite little coffin. Then, he put the fox's corpse in the coffin with a sorrowful expression. Ning Shu almost rolled his eyes. So fake. He clearly had a coquettish expression, but he still had to twist his face and make a sorrowful expression. Who are you trying to disgust? After the fox was buried, Huiqing began to go to court. The ministers were dissatisfied that he did not go to court a while ago. Hua Qing sat on the dragon throne with a sickly expression. He told the ministers that he was sick a while ago, so he did not go to court. Hua Qing's bedroom was still heavily surrounded by guards. No one was allowed to enter, causing the atmosphere of the entire palace to be very solemn. The little fox was dead. The concubines in the imperial harem were so excited that they almost set off firecrackers to celebrate. This troublesome fox was finally dead. They had to thank the person who dared to commit such a heinous crime by daring to kill the little fox. Ba. Compared to the excited concubines in the inner palace, imperial noble consort Xian's pale face was ashen. She angrily asked Ningxu, "Empress, what is the emperor trying to do? You've already thought of it, so why are you asking me?" Ningxu wasn't angry at all. He said to imperial noble consort Xian, "Do you agree with the plan that I told you previously? Do you want to cooperate with me? His Majesty already doesn't want all the women in this harem. The harem is like a figurehead. Why should we still care about this little bit of affection between husband and wife?" Ningxu faintly said. This was the correct way to torture a scumbag man. Destroy a man with a woman, not a woman against a woman. Imperial noble consort Xian bit her lips tightly. She was struggling. Ningxu continued, "Don't be anxious. You can think about it slowly. However, I think that after a while, that fox spirit will openly appear in the harem. She will be the favorite of the harem. Maybe the emperor will even disperse the harem for her. When that time comes, we, the women who serve the emperor, won't even have a status after we die. We won't be able to enjoy the incense offerings of our descendants." "Empress, I agree. I will send a letter to the imperial preceptor's residence." Imperial noble consort Xian took a deep breath. Her eyes were firm as she spoke to Ningxu word by word. Ningxu smiled. At night, Hua Qing came over. He went straight to the point. "Empress, it's going to be the autumn harvest soon. I will be leaving the palace to harvest the grain with the commoners. I'll just take a look at this year's harvest." Harvest the grain together? To put it bluntly, he was going to put on a show and have fun in front of the commoners. Ningxu said, "Emperor, do you want me to go?" In this kind of situation, the emperor and the mother of the nation should be together, wearing coarse hemp clothes to harvest the grain. Ningxu knew that Hua Qing wouldn't bring her along. Hua Qing saw the anticipation and excitement on the empress face and immediately said, "Empress, you don't need to go. You'll be back soon this time. The palace can't be empty. Also, have you found the culprit I asked you to find?" "I'm investigating, but I don't know who did it. I don't have a single clue." Ningxu looked at Hua Qing with a distressed expression. An unnatural expression flashed across Hua Qing's face as he said, "No matter what, you must find out." Ningxu had a dumbfounded expression. Hua Qing left after saying a few words. He didn't talk to Ningxu for more than the time it took to brew a cup of tea. Ningxu looked at Hua Qing's hurried back. TSK. Her place wasn't some scary place. Why was she so afraid of the little fox getting angry? Nyang. His Majesty hasn't rested in Nyang's palace for a long time. Qingju said to Ningxu somewhat anxiously. Ningxu drank a mouthful of tea. His Majesty won't come to the inner palace in the future. Don't worry about it. Sleep. The next morning, Ningxu took the concubines of the inner palace to the palace gates to see Hua Qing off. They sent Hua Qing to harvest the rice. Ningxu found that there was an additional little eunuch with red lips, white teeth, and creamy skin beside Hua Qing. Even though she was wearing the clothes of a little eunuch, it still couldn't hide her beauty. Her eyes were also lively and beautiful. Although they were large almond eyes, the ends of her eyes were slightly raised. There was a kind of charm and incomparable beauty. Hua Qing saw that Ningxu's gaze was on the little eunuch and unobtrusively blocked in front of the little eunuch. Ningxu said, "Empress, take care of the inner palace. Zhen will be back soon." Ningxu bowed and said with false concern, "Qinxia will remember. Qinxia and my sisters will wait for His Majesty to come back. Be careful, His Majesty." As soon as Ningxu finished speaking, she heard a slight cold snort. Ningxu pretended not to hear it. Hua Qing got on the carriage. Eunuch Qiu shouted to set off. The long line headed towards the palace gates. The little eunuch didn't get on the carriage. Instead, he followed the carriage. His eyes kept rolling around, appearing very curious. Ning Shu watched the long line leave the palace gates. Only then did he turn and head back to his own palace. After Huqing left, the concubines were even more bored. They dressed up beautifully, but the emperor didn't even look at them. Ning Shu let his concubines go back to their own palaces. If they had nothing to do, they could embroider by themselves. Otherwise, they could find entertainment by themselves. Perhaps it was because Huqing hadn't entered the inner palace for a long time. Everyone didn't have any favor. For a time, the relationships between the women eased up. They gathered together to chat when they had nothing to do. If they didn't find something to do, they would go crazy from boredom. Imperial noble consort Xian's gaze was fixed on the palace gates. Ning Shu asked, "That little eunuch is the little fox, right? It's so strange. How did a fox turn into a human?" "Extremely beautiful. She is indeed a fox spirit," Imperial noble consort Xian said coldly. Chapter 246. Ning Shu felt that Huqing did not go to the autumn harvest. Instead, he went to spend time with the little fox. He left behind all the women in the palace and ran off to play with the adulterous couple. She still had to stay in the palace to help Huqing manage all the women in the palace. Damn it! Ning Shu wanted to kill the emperor again. Ning Shu did not care about Huqing's matters. Instead, he accompanied Huqing to study. Some things were not easy to do when Huqing was around. After Huqing left, Ning Shu immediately hired a teacher for Huqing. This teacher was found by Marshal Xiao. Ning Shu and Imperial noble consort Xian secretly sped up their plans. Half a month passed. Huqing, who was so happy that he forgot about home, finally returned. But when he returned, he brought a peerless beauty with him. When Huqing returned, he brought the little fox in front of Ning Shu. He directly said to Ning Shu, "Empress, this is Jin Ling." The little fox Jin Ling did not bow to Ning Shu. Huqing did not say anything. Ning Shu calmly said, "Your Majesty, where did such a beautiful woman come from? Your Majesty went to the autumn harvest and brought back such a peerless beauty. This is the daughter of the county magistrate of Chu County, not far from the capital. I like her very much and brought her into the palace." Huqing looked at the little fox with a loving gaze. Ning Shu smiled and looked at the little fox. She was wearing a pink satin palace dress. She did not wear any makeup. Her white skin had a slightly pink luster. There was a youthful and charming look between her brows. However, her figure was curvaceous. Her eyes were very lively and cute. When one looked at her, one would feel that they were captivated by this pair of eyes that were full of intelligence and cunning. She was charming with an innocent cunning. She could not be any more charming. Ning Shu finally understood Huqing's intentions. First, he killed a fox and skinned it. After all, not every fox had a beautiful golden fur like the little fox. Then, after leaving the palace, he gave the little fox a proper identity. Huqing really put in a lot of effort for the little fox. Ning Shu said meaningfully, "That parental official in Chu County is really emitting smoke from his ancestral grave. To be able to give birth to such a peerless beauty in the world. Your Majesty, please arrange a place for Chinchia to live." "I don't need you to arrange a place for me to stay. I want to stay with Huqing," said the little fox Jin Ling. The little fox looked at Ning Shu with vigilance and hostility. She had been a fox before, so she didn't feel much for these women. Now that she had become a human and had given her body and mind to Huqing, the little fox was filled with hostility towards these harem women. The man she liked could only like her back. Love was selfish. The little fox glared at Huqing in annoyance. Really, if she had known this would happen, she wouldn't have returned to the palace. Now that she was a human, she might as well go sightseeing on the mainland and flirt with the little fresh meats instead of guarding Huqing, who had so many women. Seeing that his beloved was unhappy, Huqing hurriedly comforted her with a doting gaze. Ning Shu watched as the two of them looked at each other lovingly in front of her. He didn't care if others could take it or not. "Miss, have I seen you before? You give me a very familiar feeling. I keep feeling like I've seen you somewhere before." Ning Shu narrowed her eyes slightly, as if trying to recall where she had seen her before. Huqing stood in front of the little fox. Jin Ling. Ning Shu said, Jean Ling has lived in Chu County since she was young. How could you possibly have seen her, Your Majesty? There's no need to arrange a place for her to stay. I'll do it myself. Huaqing then led the little fox away. The little fox turned around and playfully stuck out her tongue at Ning Shu. Her contempt for Ning Shu was obvious. After they left the palace, Huaqing tapped the little fox's nose in annoyance. He said dotingly, "You're such an eccentric girl. She's the empress now. Don't go against her. It won't do you any good." "Humph." The little fox raised her head and bit Huaqing's chin. She then said proudly, "I just don't like her. Huaqing, you can only have me in your heart. You're not allowed to have anyone else. Otherwise, I'll leave the palace and find other handsome men." Huaqing patted the little fox's butt lightly. "You're mine. I won't allow you to find other men. I'll kill whoever you find. Let's see who dares to touch you in the future. No one dares to touch my beloved. Yes, I'm not yours." The little fox heard Huaqing's words and retorted. Her heart was filled with sweetness. Huaqing was so good and so handsome. She couldn't bear to leave him. Huaqing lowered his head and went to the little fox's ear. He bit the little fox's ear and blew hot air into it. "If you're not mine, then who are you?" The little fox's body went limp and her face turned red. She looked at Huaqing with watery eyes. Huaqing was aroused by the little fox's gaze. He immediately carried the little fox and went to the bedroom. After a round of passion, the little fox drew circles on Huaqing's chest with her white and tender fingers. She said to Huaqing, "Huaqing, I hate those women in your harem. And the empress. I hate her. I especially hate the way she looks at me." Huaqing grabbed the little fox's hand and kissed it. "She won't be the empress soon. You're the only one in my heart. You're the only one who's fit to be my empress." After Huaqing and the little fox left, Imperial Noble Consort Xian rushed over to Ning Shu and asked, "Is that woman back?" This concubine heard that His Majesty brought back a woman. "Have some tea. She's back," Ning Shu said calmly. "She's the daughter of a 9th-rank Sesame official." Huaqing didn't arrange a prominent family background for the little fox. If her background was too prominent, it would be easy for people to investigate. Besides, aristocratic families had records of their descendants. Imperial Noble Consort Xian bit her lips. Ning Shu asked, "Imperial Noble Consort, when will our plan be carried out?" "There's no rush. This concubine knows you want revenge, but things have to be done slowly." Ning Shu waved his hand. "Now isn't a good time." Imperial Noble Consort Xian sighed. Ning Shu said mournfully, "This concubine wants revenge for her child." "Revenge? This concubine's heart is filled with revenge." "There's no rush," Ning Shu said calmly. "Anything that crossed the line would cause a backlash." When the concubines in the harem found out that the emperor brought a woman back, they all rushed to Ning Shu's palace. They wanted to know what kind of woman made the emperor break the rules and bring her back to the palace. The women in the palace had to go through 3 trials and 5 generals. They had to be selected layer by layer before they could become the emperor's concubine. However, that woman was brought back directly. All the concubines felt very uneasy. First, it was a fox that stole all of the emperor's attention. Now there was a woman who was said to be extremely beautiful. There was really no end to it. Ning Shu only said that the woman the emperor liked was indeed very beautiful. Then, the harem spread that the woman the emperor brought back was as beautiful as a fairy. Chapter 247. The little fox was temporarily staying in Huaqing's palace, making all the concubines jealous. Now, Huaqing didn't enter the harem at all. Every day he pampered women who came out of nowhere. Huaqing hadn't entered the harem for almost half a year. In the past, Huaqing rarely entered the harem, but at least he would let the concubines serve him. Now, he didn't even enter the harem, which made the concubines' hearts itch. If they had explosives in their hands, Ning Shu suspected that these women would blow up Huaqing's palace. It would be best if they killed all the women in the palace. Huaqing doted on the little fox a lot. Other than when he went to court, Huaqing spent all his time with the little fox. Ning Shu couldn't understand why Huaqing didn't give the little fox a position. Could it be that he wanted to overthrow the marshal's residence and make the little fox empress? In the plot, The little fox eventually became the empress, and her son became the emperor. Then the playful little fox took Wuxia to travel the world. She was so lucky. Your Highness, the people from the Ministry of Works are working on the palace not far from the emperor. I think they're going to build a house, Qingzhu told Ningxu. Building a house? How many houses were there in the palace? Moreover, the buildings in the palace were all planned. Suddenly building a house would break the overall layout of the palace. I asked little Anzi. He said that they're building a house for Miss Jean Ling, and that Miss Jean Ling personally designed it, Qingzhu said. The people from the Ministry of Works didn't want to take over at first. They advised the emperor that every part of the palace was planned, and that it was related to the fate of the country and the gathering of the dragon bloodline. Miss Jean Ling said that the people from the Ministry of Works were superstitious. Then, the emperor personally ordered that everything be built according to Miss Jean Ling's design. Ningxu was speechless. Okay, rich and willful. Because Wuxia didn't give the little fox a position. The servants in the palace all called the little fox Mississippi. But secretly, they despised this woman. She was with the emperor without any status. Wasn't she having illicit relations without a matchmaker? The little fox from the modern world didn't care about this at all. In her opinion, she and Wuxia were truly in love. Now they were boyfriend and girlfriend. It had nothing to do with others. Even if the little fox heard these words, she didn't care. As long as she was happy, anything was fine. The little fox wanted to give Wuxia a surprise. So she kept urging the people from the Ministry of Works to hurry up and fix the house. Apart from that, the little fox brought many changes to the harem. For example, she gave Wuxia some exotic food, and often performed modern dances for him. She also performed some seductive dances and pole dances. This made Wuxia even more fascinated with the little fox. He couldn't figure out what was going on in her mind. Wuxia felt very blessed to have met her. He felt that his life had been in vain. Wuxia even thanked the heavens for letting him meet her. At this time, Wuxia had completely forgotten that there was a group of concubines waiting for him in the harem. The Ministry of Works built the house very quickly. Soon, a modern-style villa was built next to Wuxia's bedroom. Ningxu looked at the villa and wanted to cover his face. It was really strange that such a white villa had suddenly appeared in the majestic and dignified palace. It completely destroyed the dignity and wealth that the palace should have. In short, it was as awkward as it could be. Wuxia loved the house and its crow. He liked this style of house very much. When he heard her say that this was their love nest, Wuxia's heart was burning. He liked this house even more. In order to shock these ignorant ancient people, the little fox generously invited the concubines from the harem to her villa to attend the party. Wuxia was afraid that no one would attend the little fox's party and embarrass the little fox. Therefore, he ordered all the concubines to attend the party. Even Ningxu the empress was no exception. The concubines who came to attend the party all looked at the villa with wide eyes and strange expressions. The little fox was proud. You ancient people have never seen a modern villa. Every time Ningxu looked at this villa, her heart would itch. She wanted to find someone to tear down this house. It was really awkward to look at. Ningxu felt that she had obsessive-compulsive disorder. It was a party, but it was just barbecue. The little fox even explained to the concubines that it was barbecue. Looking at the concubines' confused expressions, the little fox could only shrug. This was the generation gap. There was no way to communicate. These concubines didn't touch the barbecue. The smoky food looked dirty. These concubines ate very carefully in the palace. They didn't eat this kind of food. Seeing the little fox's bold manner of eating, the concubines widened their eyes. Did the emperor like such a boorish woman? Ningxu narrowed his eyes at the little fox. He saw the red mark on her neck. He could see how intimate she was with Wuxia. These concubines came here to see Wuxia. However, when the party ended, they didn't see Wuxia. They could only leave in disappointment. The little fox looked at the expressions of these concubines with disdain. These people were really hypocrites. They said that they were here to attend her party, but they were still thinking about her Wuxia. She had already informed Wuxia not to come. Seeing these people's disappointed expressions, the little fox was secretly pleased. Ning Shu looked at the little fox indifferently. He didn't know what class the little fox was before she transmigrated. Why did he feel that she was so lowly? She wanted to beat the ancients with her insignificant modern knowledge. Ning Shu only had 3 words. Haha. This little fox didn't have any rules. She never greeted anyone. She was simply challenging the ancient feudal system. Alright, with the emperor as her backing, she could be so willful. Hua Qing would be scolded to death by the imperial censors sooner or later. The little fox was a maverick in the palace. She treated her maids very well. She even said that everyone was equal, and no one was nobler than another. Ning Shu felt that if he was this maid, he would definitely give her a big slap. Your sister, if everyone was equal, why was he serving her and not the other way around? Her words were pleasant to hear. TSK, TSK, TSK. Ning Shu didn't know how to evaluate the little fox. Hua Qing liked her character and personality so much. Was Hua Qing's eyes covered with lard? Or was he used to seeing elegant ladies, and was interested in the little fox's overly lively personality? The little fox also invented mahjong, poker and the like. It created a gambling craze in the palace. Even the concubines in the harem were addicted to these gambling games. With the new games, the concubines didn't miss the emperor every day. This was one of the good things the little fox did. In short, the palace was a mess. Coupled with Hua Qing's unprincipled favoritism, the little fox caused chaos wherever she went. The unlucky ones were always others. Hua Qing, your concubine cheated in mahjong with me. It's fine. Punish that concubine by grounding her for a month. Hua Qing, I'm sorry. I tore your dragon robe. It's all because you suddenly hugged me last night. I got too excited. It's fine. Chapter 248. At night, lightning flashed and deafening thunder boomed in the sky. It was raining cats and dogs. Suddenly, there was a loud clap of thunder that made the entire palace tremble. Panicked cries could be heard in the storm. Fire, fire! The villa next to Hua Qing's bedroom was on fire. The fire was so strong that even the heavy rain could not extinguish it. The fire lit up the entire palace. The palace became restless. Ning Shu got up from the bed and said to Hua Qingwang, Qingwang, it's about to start. Are you afraid? I'm not afraid. Hua Qingwang clenched his fists tightly. His body was trembling, and his face was red. Ning Shu said, I'm not afraid. If we fail, we will die. Qingju helped Ning Shu put on his clothes. Hua Qingwang got up from the bed and grabbed the corner of Ning Shu's clothes tightly. Mother, I'm not afraid. Ning Shu nodded. Holding Hua Qingwang's hand, he walked towards the burning villa. Qingju and the palace maids held umbrellas for Ning Shu and Hua Qingwang. It was raining heavily, and a lot of rainwater had accumulated on the ground. It almost drowned their shoes. When they arrived at the villa, many palace maids and guards were putting out the fire. Hua Qing and Little Fox stood under the roof of the bedroom in their pajamas. Little Fox's eyes were red. She felt her heart ache when she saw her efforts being burned. There were so many places in the palace, but only her villa was burned. Her villa. Little Fox's heart ached. She had her own mansion in ancient times, but it was struck by lightning. She felt that the heavens were playing with her. Seeing Little Fox like this, Hua Qing quickly put out the fire. Even with so many eunuchs and guards putting out the fire did not die down. It exploded with crackling sounds. Hua Qing's face was cold, and his brows were tightly knitted. Under the flickering light of the fire, he was incomparably cold. Ning Shu held Hua Qingwang's hand and walked in front of Hua Qing. She bowed to Hua Qing. Greetings, Your Majesty. Hua Qing glanced at Ning Shu, and his gaze stopped on Hua Qingwang. He said impatiently, Why did you bring the child here so late? Since something like this happened, Qinxia naturally had to come. Qingwang was worried about His Majesty, and thought that His Majesty was living in the villa. He was afraid that something would happen to His Majesty, so he begged Qinxia to come along. Ning Shu said faintly. Hua Qing's heart skipped a beat. Fortunately, he didn't stay in the villa tonight. Otherwise he would be in trouble. Hua was a woman who knew how to have fun. Sometimes, she would have sex in the villa, and basically didn't stay in the villa at night. Hua said that the newly repaired house wasn't suitable for people to live in. Moreover, Huer said that she preferred to sleep in the dragon bed. Otherwise, he and Huer would be trapped in the villa tonight. Huaqing heaved a sigh of relief and couldn't help but reach out to hug the little fox with one hand. He comforted her. "Don't be afraid, I'm here." Ningxu was speechless. At the very least, his wife and son were beside him. Could he restrain himself a little? Hua Chunwang grabbed Ningxu's hand and watched as Hua Chunwang hugged the little fox. His eyes were dark and looked very treacherous under the light of the fire. The fire burned fiercely. Even though there were so many people, they still couldn't save the villa. In the end, the villa that only had wood left collapsed with a creak. It looked especially miserable. Ningxu was about to die from laughter in his heart. This dazzling villa was finally gone. "Your Majesty, something bad has happened." An official hurriedly ran over and knelt in front of Hua Chunwang. He didn't care at all, even though the rain was pouring down on him. Huaqing frowned. "Imperial astronomer, why did you enter the palace?" "This humble subject is here to tell your Majesty that this fire is a warning to the heavens." The imperial astronomer knelt on the ground in a daze. Just as the imperial astronomer finished speaking, the sound of chaotic footsteps came over. Huaqing saw that it was actually the civil and military officials. Then one by one, they knelt in front of him. Huaqing coldly said, "My beloved officials, what are you doing? Zhen didn't summon you to enter the palace. How did you enter the palace? What are the imperial guards doing?" "Your Majesty, please forgive this subject for coming unannounced." The Grand Preceptor said to Huaqing, "This matter is truly too urgent. It concerns the future of the country. This subject can only brave the world and enter the palace." This Grand Preceptor was Imperial Noble Consort Xian's grandfather. Ningxu looked at the white-bearded marshal in full military attire. He was the original owner's grandfather. Victory or defeat would be decided today. Seeing the mass of people kneeling below, Huaqing had a bad feeling in his heart. He coldly said, "If there is anything to say it tomorrow. Zhen won't argue with my beloved officials for their improper actions today." "Your Majesty, this matter is too important. Let's listen to what these trusted officials have to say. This concubine thinks that there is something urgent." Ningxu bowed and said to Huaqing. Huaqing frowned. Ningxu scolded. "The concubines of the imperial harem are not allowed to interfere with government affairs. Empress, you are overstepping your bounds." "Huaqing, I'm a bit scared. Let's go inside." When the little fox saw this scene, her legs went weak. She pulled on Huaqing's sleeve and said pitifully, "How dare you call His Majesty by his name? How unruly." An imperial censor straightened his back and scolded the little fox righteously. Huaqing's expression immediately turned ugly. He couldn't bear to scold Huer, but he was scolded by an official so rudely. When he saw Huer's frightened appearance, Huaqing coldly said, "Imperial Censor Wu, yelling in front of Zhen like this. Do you have any manners?" "Your Majesty, please forgive me." This subject was too impatient. Although the imperial censor said sorry, his back was still straight. He clearly didn't think he was wrong. His face looked like he was ready to die at any time. It was as if he wasn't afraid of death at all. Ningxu saw that Huaqing's body was shaking with anger. He stood in front of the little fox, as if to shield her from the storm. Ningxu's eyes flashed. Huaqing really did love the little fox. But the little fox relied on Huaqing's love to do things without fear. She had never thought of lessening Huaqing's burden. He really didn't know how long Huaqing could block for the little fox. Wouldn't he be tired? Huaqing took a deep breath and said coldly, "What do you want to say? It looks like you want to force the emperor to abdicate." "This subject doesn't dare. Your Majesty, please forgive us." The minister knelt in the rain. His official robes were soaked. Ningxu was afraid that his grandfather's body wouldn't be able to take it. We don't dare. You are forcing the emperor to abdicate. What do you want?" Huaqing's hands were clenched tightly behind his back. His body was trembling slightly. Huaqing's eyes were deep, and his expression was calm. However, there was uneasiness and an unknown fear in his eyes. "Your Majesty, this subject observes the stars at night. The morning star is dim, but the demon star beside it is bright. This means that there is an evil doer around His Majesty. This fire is heaven's warning to His Majesty. The imperial astronomer said agitatedly. The fire falling from the sky is heaven's warning to Yin Kingdom. A bunch of nonsense. It's a bunch of nonsense. Hua Qing's body was trembling. An evildoer was causing trouble. These people were simply audacious. Chapter 249. The little fox didn't understand what the imperial astronomer was saying, but when she heard the word evildoer, her eyes widened in horror. Was he talking about her? Although she was a fox, she was still human. She wasn't an evildoer. The little fox clutched tightly to Hua Qing's clothes, her heart filled with unease and fear. Astronomical phenomena are nonsense. Imperial astronomer, I asked you to check the weather, not to exaggerate things like astrology. Hua Qing said coldly. I don't have any evildoers by my side. You're overthinking things. Your Majesty. The imperial astronomer kowtowed to the ground and cried out mournfully. Your Majesty, you must believe this humble subject's words. Planet Qiming is currently dim and lightless. Planet Qiming is the brightest star and represents your Majesty. But now that it's dim, I'm afraid it won't just affect your Majesty, but also the entire country, your Majesty. The imperial astronomer kowtowed to the ground, his forehead bruised, and his expression pained. The little fox was so frightened that she clutched Hua Qing's clothes tightly and hid behind him. She felt even more uneasy. Your Majesty, it's better to believe than not. Let the imperial astronomer investigate if there's an evildoer by your Majesty's side. This way, your Majesty and the ministers can rest assured, Ning Shu said gently. Hua Qing turned his head to look at Ning Shu. His eyes were dark and fierce as he roared at Ning Shu. Shut up. Ning Shu closed his mouth and didn't say anything. Hua Chunwang saw his mother being scolded and wanted to say something, but Ning Shu squeezed his hand and he quieted down. Your Majesty, Her Majesty the Empress is thinking for your Majesty. Please forgive Her Majesty. Dressed in armor, the white-bearded Marshal Xiao was practically begging Hua Qing. It made one's heart ache inexplicably. Hua Qing was angered to death by Marshal Xiao's behavior. It was as if he was an incapable ruler who couldn't distinguish between right and wrong. Your Majesty, the most important thing now is to find out who the evildoer is and who the person who is harmful to the country of Yin is. There are so many buildings in the palace, but why was this strange building destroyed by the heavenly lightning? This kind of thing shouldn't exist in the palace. Your Majesty, the woman beside you is a demon. The Grand Preceptor was heartbroken. Your Majesty, you have been bewitched by the woman beside you. She is a demon that has transformed into a human to bring disaster to the Yin Kingdom. When Hua Qing heard the Grand Preceptor's words, he was so angry that he almost fainted. He had clearly concealed Huer's identity well, and was very careful. How did these people know that Huer had transformed into a human? Hua Qing's eyes were red. He gritted his teeth tightly, and the muscles on his face were trembling. Ning Shu hurriedly pulled Hua Chunwang back and asked in fear. Your Majesty, didn't you say she was the county magistrate's daughter? How could it be a monster? Your Majesty, come over quickly. Don't stand with the monster. Shut up, poisonous woman. When Hua Qing heard Ning Shu calling Huer a demon, he roared. She's not a demon at all. Hua Qing looked around and saw the Empress hugging Hua Chunwang tightly. A group of ministers were kneeling in the rain. He felt powerless, as if he was against the world. Behind him, Huer was trembling in fear. Your Majesty, you are really muddle-headed. You can't see such an obvious fact. Marshal Xiao said. This woman is a fox spirit that has transformed into a human. She wants to shake the country. Does your Majesty not know about King Zhou of Shang and Sudaji? Your Majesty, are you going to ignore the Yin Kingdom? Since this demoness entered the palace, many things have happened. She has harmed the imperial heirs and has no regard for seniority. Your Majesty has been bewitched by this demon and doesn't care about it. If this continues, the country will no longer be a country, and the ministers will no longer be ministers. The Grand Preceptor knelt in the rain, his body swaying. He was supported by the ministers beside him, but he still insisted, Your Majesty, for the sake of the people of the Wei Kingdom, please kill this demoness and return the Yin Kingdom to its former glory. Your Majesty, please kill this demoness and return the Yin Kingdom to its former glory. The ministers shouted in unison. They kowtowed as if they were not afraid of pain. The little fox's face turned pale with fright. She couldn't help but cry out, "You stubborn old fogies! You want me to die because of a single star? You're treating human life like grass. You'll suffer retribution for this. This demoness has brought disaster to the Yin kingdom. She deserves to die." The Grand Preceptor looked at the little fox with disgust. The little fox was stunned. How was she a demoness? How could she bring disaster to the country? How could a woman like her have such ability? The little fox was afraid and wronged. She had no grudge against these people. Why should they decide her fate so easily? Hua Qing's blood boiled in his chest. A bloody taste rose in his throat. His head was throbbing with pain. He was angry and afraid. He was afraid that he would not be able to protect Hua Qing swallowed the bloody taste in his mouth and said calmly, "There is no evidence to prove that this woman is a demoness. Your Majesty, this demoness was transformed from the fox beside your Majesty." The imperial astronomer pointed at the little fox. Hua Qing immediately retorted, "The little fox by my side has already been killed. It's ridiculous that a beast can transform into a human. If I want officials like you to guard my country, I'd rather give up the country of Wei. Your Majesty, I have solid evidence today. That is why I am purging you," the Grand Preceptor said. "Shaoanzi, who is by your Majesty's side, can prove it." "Shaoanzi?" Hua Qing looked in shock at Shaoanzi, who walked over with his back bent. Then he knelt down with a plop. "Shaoanzi greets your Majesty and everyone." There was no fear on Shaoanzi's face. Hua Qing felt uneasy when he saw Shaoanzi like this. He snorted and said, "Shaoanzi, be careful with your words. If you lie, I will have your head." Shaoanzi kowtowed and said, "I will definitely tell the truth. The woman beside your Majesty is transformed from the golden fox. The dead fox in the imperial garden was made by your Majesty. Your Majesty asked me to skin the dead fox." Shaoanzi kowtowed to the ground. "If I lie, I will fall into the 18th level of hell and never be reincarnated," Shaoanzi said coldly. His words were like a knife that scraped Hua Qing's body. Hua Qing did not expect that the dog beside him would bite him back. This damned eunuch actually dared to say such things. Hua Qing shouted coldly, "Shaoanzi, I have treated you well. How dare you betray me?" "I did not betray your Majesty. I am loyal to the entire Yin kingdom. Your Majesty connives with the evildoer and has an illicit relationship with the evildoer. Even if I am killed by your Majesty now, I will die without regrets. I only hate that I cannot kill the evildoer with my own hands." Shaoanzi looked at the little fox with hatred in his eyes. "Do you hate me?" The little fox could not figure out how she had offended him. "Of course I hate you. You made the emperor cruel. As a human, I was actually teased by a beast like you," Shaoanzi said hatefully. Ning Shu smiled faintly in his heart. No matter how small the nail was, it would still hurt. This was the price of being willful. Chapter 250. Hua Qing regretted not taking down the marshal's residence. He wanted to take it slow, but with Hua by his side, he was afraid that if he was too aggressive, someone would hurt Hua. He wanted to slowly take the military power from old Marshal Zhao's hands. But now, he was forced to kill Hua by these officials. Hua Qing wanted nothing more than to chop these officials up. Time waits for no one. Now he was a fish on the chopping board. He couldn't even protect the woman he loved. Hua Qing gripped the little fox's cold hand tightly. His eyes swept across the faces of these righteous officials. He calmly and coldly said, "I've said it before. The woman beside me is not some golden fox in disguise. Little Anzi, that dog of a slave, actually dares to frame me. Emperor, why are you so stubborn?" The old Grand Tutor straightened his back and said harshly, "If the emperor doesn't kill this evildoer who brings disaster to the country, this old official will kill himself here with all the officials. This old official doesn't want the emperor to do anything that will harm the foundation of our ancestors, Emperor. Emperor, please kill this evildoer who brings disaster to the country." The officials knelt on the ground and kowtowed to Hua Qing with serious expressions. Hua Qing was so angry that he staggered. Were they threatening him with death? Hua Qing didn't care about the lives of these officials at all. but he couldn't be labeled as muddle-headed. Huaqing, I'm so scared. When the little fox heard these people saying that they wanted to kill her, she was scared out of her wits. She felt very wronged. She was just a woman. What did she have to do with these people if she wanted to be happy? These people just wanted to kill her. Huaqing tightly held the little fox's hand and said firmly, "With this one here, no one dares to do this to you. Emperor, you can't keep this witch alive. She really is a fox in disguise. This official has proof." Marshal Xiao knelt and cupped his hands to Huaqing. He waved his hand to the deputy general beside him. Then, guards came over with Taoists. "Tell me the truth. Is the woman next to the emperor a fox spirit?" Marshal Xiao fiercely said to these Taoists. Several Taoist priests knelt on the ground. The rain soaked their Taoist robes, making them look miserable. They looked haggard and dispirited. The Taoist priests looked at each other and finally said, "The woman beside the emperor is a fox spirit. When the emperor found us, he wanted the golden fox to turn into a human." "Ridiculous, this is simply ridiculous," Huaqing shouted. "How can an animal turn into a human? Make a human for me." Huaqing felt very uneasy. These people had come prepared. He was really careless. He should have killed old man Xiao first. Then, the civil officials and military generals would not have joined forces to force him to abdicate. Animals can't transform into humans. It was me who offered the 1,000-year-old mermaid pearl. The golden fox swallowed the mermaid pearl to transform into a human. An elderly Taoist said hurriedly. "Ning Shu, didn't they say that there was only one shark pearl in the world? Why was there another one?" You. Huaqing pointed at the people kneeling on the ground below. The moisture from the rain hit his body. It was very cold. Huaqing suddenly felt very cold. "Are you going to rebel and force me to abdicate?" Huaqing roared. "We don't dare. We can only disregard life and death, and get rid of the evildoers around us. The evildoers who bring disaster to the country," the Grand Preceptor said righteously. "Your Majesty, you have been bewitched by this evildoer. You can't see the country and the people. If you let this evildoer do whatever she wants, I'm afraid that the Yin Kingdom will be destroyed." Huaqing was so angry that his body was trembling. He forced himself to calm down and said coldly, "Jin Ling is just a woman. She can't overturn the Yin Kingdom. You think too highly of her." Huaqing knew her. She didn't care about glory and wealth. She didn't like power and liked to play. How could she overturn the country? "Your Majesty, these ministers are working hard for the Yin Kingdom. Everything they do is for the country and the people. Your Majesty, you should give up on Miss Jin Ling. Humans and demons are different." Ning Shu bowed and said to Huaqing. When Huaqing heard Ning Shu's words, he immediately said sternly, "Shut up. I suspect that you are jealous of Jin Ling. That's why you did this. Empress, your Xiao family has a lot of troops and wants to rebel. I have known about your ambitions for a long time." Ning Shu's face was immediately filled with grievances, as if she had been wronged. She said, "Your Majesty, Qinxia is just a woman in the imperial harem. How could I have the ability to make the ministers do such a thing? You are a woman. Jin Ling is also a woman. Why did you do this to her? Are you happy to hit her when she is down? I really misjudged you." Ning Shu was speechless. He was speechless. He wasn't going after little fox. He was going after you. Ning Shu wiped his tears with a handkerchief. The little fox looked at Ning Shu unkindly and said resentfully, "Your Majesty, even if you hate me, you can't put Huaqing in such a dilemma." Ning Shu, "Bah, the one who put Huaqing in such a dilemma is not me. It is you. It is your willfulness that put Huaqing in such a dilemma." Ning Shu didn't speak. He kept wiping his tears. His aggrieved look made people feel sad. "What right do you have to point at my mother? She is the empress of the Yin Kingdom. She manages the harem diligently so that my father has no worries. My mother did nothing wrong. Instead, after you came to the palace, the entire palace was in a mess," Huaqing said disdainfully. Huaqing said disdainfully, "You don't have proper etiquette. You never salute my mother when you see her. You're really an animal." Huaqing, shut up. Huaqing shouted at Huaqing with bloodshot eyes. "You have no right to speak here." Huaqing was frightened by Huaqing's ferocious face. He burst into tears and shouted, "Father, you don't want me anymore? Father has an evildoer. You don't even want your wife and children. Father, wake up. Father, wah 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 wah." Ningxu hugged Hu Chengwang. He wiped his tears and said, "Chengwang, don't cry. Chengwang, don't cry. Mother, father only wants the vixen. He doesn't want me and mother anymore." Hu Chengwang cried. This desolate look really made people's hearts ache. Hu Qing was instantly labeled as someone who had abandoned his wife and child. You. Hu Qing's blood boiled in his chest. Blood flowed from the corner of his mouth. He stared at Ningxu and Hu Chengwang with wide eyes. He said to Hu Chengwang with hatred, "Little wolf, you actually want to kill your father." "Father, I didn't. I just want father to leave this vixen. Mother and I can't live without father." Hu Chengwang's face was full of sorrow. Hu Qing looked at Hu Chengwang and said coldly, "The blood of the Shao family flows in your body. You have wild ambitions. When you were born, I should have strangled you to death." Hu Qing's sudden words stunned all the officials. Even a vicious tiger would not eat its cubs. Now the emperor wanted to kill his son. He was the same as King Zhou of Shang. Chapter 251. The rain stopped, but there was a cold chill. The atmosphere outside the bedchamber was extremely solemn. Hu Qing suddenly laughed. He looked at these officials and said coldly, "Speak, what do you want to do?" "Your Majesty, we just want you to mend your ways and kill the evildoer to restore order." The Grand Preceptor did not budge an inch. Hu Qing sneered. His aura was very frightening. "What if I don't? I am the son of heaven, but I can't even protect the woman I love. I am a useless emperor. Your Majesty, you are carrying the people of the Yin Kingdom. Even if we die, we will lead you to the right path." The imperial censor said loudly to Hu Qing. Hu Qing's expression was very cold. "If you want to die, I will fulfill your wish." Hu Qing pulled out the large knife hanging from the waist of the guard beside him. With lightning speed, he stabbed the knife into the imperial censor's stomach. It happened too quickly. Everyone was shocked. The imperial censor who was stabbed said with difficulty, "Your Majesty, please kill the evildoer. With this evildoer here, the Yin Kingdom will not be safe." Hu Qing's face was livid with anger. He had actually helped the imperial censor achieve his eternal reputation. He was afraid that future generations would remember this official who had died for his remonstrance and was killed by him. Hu Qing's hand holding the knife trembled. His head was buzzing and cold sweat broke out on his back. Ningxu was also shocked by Hu Qing's actions. He quickly said to Qingzhu, "Quickly call the Grand Preceptor. Don't let anything happen to Lord Wang." Qingzhu quickly turned and ran. Ningxu did not expect Hu Qing to make a move. The little fox was indeed his reverse scale. He would go crazy when others touched him. The imperial censor who was killed spat out blood. Until his last moment, he tried to persuade Hu Qing. "Your Majesty, please kill the evildoer. Kill the evildoer." Before the imperial physicians could arrive, Lord Wang had already breathed his last. His blood flowed into the distance along with the rainwater, and the guards immediately carried Lord Wang away. Ningxu looked at Hu Qing with heavy eyes. When he turned his head, he saw the little fox covering her mouth in shock. He coldly said to the little fox, "The emperor did such an irrational thing for you. If you really love the emperor, you should end your own life. Don't make things difficult for the emperor. The emperor has labeled you as an incapable ruler." Ningxu had only said it casually. He was sure that little fox would not dare to commit suicide. In essence, little fox was a selfish person. Xiao, shut up." Hu Qing stood in front of the little fox with a knife dripping with blood. "Jin Ling is my beloved woman. No one in this world can hurt her." Ningxu was speechless. "All right, as long as you're happy." Hu Qing's actions stunned everyone. The officials kneeling on the ground were livid. She cried and shouted at Hu Qing. "Hu Qing, I don't want to die. I really don't want to die. No one can let you die. With me here, no one can hurt you." Hu Qing hugged the crying little fox. Ningxu felt his teeth ache. It was so boring to be all lovey-dovey. "Your Majesty, if you want the evildoer to live, then please abdicate. This way, the evildoer will do the least damage to the Yin Kingdom." The Grand Preceptor threw caution to the wind and asked Huiqing to abdicate. We agree. Your Majesty, please abdicate. The officials knelt on the ground and said in unison. Huiqing's body shook, and his teeth seemed to be chattering. So you were waiting for me here. You want to dethrone me? The Yin Kingdom belongs to the Hu family. This country was conquered by the Hu family. When did it become your turn to make decisions? We are all doing this for the future of the Yin Kingdom. If your Majesty doesn't want to abdicate, then kill the evildoer. I have lived for so long and don't have much time left. If I can do something for the Yin Kingdom in the end, I can say that I have fulfilled my duty to the late emperor in the afterlife. The Grand Preceptor didn't care about life and death. Huiqing felt cold all over. He just wanted to have a woman he loved. Why did these people have to be like this? They had to make him a high and mighty loner. Without Hu, there would be no joy to speak of. Now there were two paths before Huiqing. If he wanted the throne, he couldn't have the little fox. If he wanted the little fox, he couldn't have the throne. Chapter 252. Now, Huiqing was deserted by everyone. For the woman he loved, he stood against everyone. No one objected to Huiqing doting on a woman, but there was a limit to everything. Once this limit was crossed, there would be repercussions. Huiqing's love for the little fox was without any principles or bottom line. He allowed the little fox to break the rules that everyone should abide by without restraint. Moreover, this love was built on the basis of hurting others. Everyone looked at Huiqing, including the little fox. At this moment, Huiqing felt as if he was standing on a mountain surrounded by cliffs, unable to advance or retreat. Huiqing gritted his teeth. The muscles on his face trembled and his eyes were red. His heart felt like it was being tortured in a pan of oil. Huiqing couldn't understand how things had turned out like this. This was a complete conspiracy. They were using the excuse of dealing with Hu to deal with him. Huiqing swallowed hard. His expression was dazed, as if his soul was about to leave his body. Why? We'll discuss this matter later. Huiqing said with difficulty. We will give everyone an explanation for this matter. How will your Majesty deal with this evildoer? Lord Wang is already dead, and the Empress almost lost her life. We can't just let this matter rest. Marshal Xiao said agitatedly. Someone has to take responsibility for tonight's matter. Huiqing rubbed his forehead. He staggered and almost fell. The little fox quickly supported Huiqing. She looked at Huiqing with her watery eyes. Huiqing's heart softened when he saw her. Huiqing loved it when Hua looked at him with such eyes. It was pure, beautiful, innocent and clear. It was as if she had received the whole world. We'll talk about this later. Huiqing's face turned green, and he couldn't stop trembling. Huiqing was forced into a corner by these people. He could only say, capture Jinling first. The little fox's eyes widened as she stared at Huiqing in a daze. Tears streamed down her cheeks as she complained. Huiqing, you gave me up for the throne. You keep saying that you love me, but you gave up on me. Huiqing wanted to grab the little fox's hand, but the little fox took a step back. You gave me up. Huiqing felt as if someone was stabbing his heart with a knife. The pain was excruciating. He really wanted to tell the little fox that this was just a temporary measure. He would definitely not let anything happen to the little fox. But little fox had no idea what Huiqing was thinking. All she knew was that Huiqing had given up on her for the sake of power. Huiqing said he loved her, but he couldn't win against power. Huiqing, I hate you. This is your love for me. You want my life for the sake of power. The little fox wept silently. She looked especially miserable and beautiful. Ningxu was speechless. Ningxu suddenly sympathized with Huiqing. How tiring was it to like someone whose thoughts were not on the same channel as yours? Any woman in the imperial harem would know what to choose now. As long as Huiqing was still the emperor, she would be fine. At the end of the day, women from ancient families were different from modern women. The little fox looked down on the ancient women. But from a certain point of view, the ancient women were much more sensible and intelligent than modern women. They were willing to make sacrifices for their own goals. Little Fox was acting as if she had been betrayed, and was heartbroken. She simply couldn't understand. The ministers were probably shocked by Little Fox's actions. After kneeling for so long, They simply sat on the ground and looked at the two people. Hua Chunwang quietly asked Ningxu, "Mother, what will Imperial Father choose in the end?" "Chunwang, what do you think?" Ningxu asked Hua Chunwang. "It's not worth giving up the throne for a woman, especially one like her." Hua Chunwang was silent for a moment. Finally he concluded, "Imperial Father will give up on her." "Is that so?" Ningxu didn't deny it. Marshal Xiao stood up and said, "If your Majesty can't make a decision, this old official is willing to make a decision for your Majesty. This old official will kill this demoness for your Majesty. After this, if your Majesty wants to kill me, this old official will have no objections." "Old man, don't you dare." Hua Qing stood in front of Little Fox and coldly shouted at Marshal Xiao, "Are you trying to rebel?" In order to set things right, even if this official is accused of rebellion, this old official will have no regrets. Marshal Xiao's beard was white. When he said such words, it made people's hearts sour. It made Hua Qing seem even more foolish. Eunuch Qiu rushed over and said in Hua Qing's ear, "Your Majesty, Marshal Xiao's army has taken control of the entire capital. The palace has been surrounded." Hua Qing's hand trembled. This day had indeed come. Hua Qing regretted not getting rid of the Xiao family earlier. Now he was being harmed instead. Now that things had developed to this point, there were no three paths for Hua Qing to take. Hua Qing looked at the heartbroken Little Fox and the aggressive ministers. It was as if all his strength had been sucked away. He felt indescribably helpless. "Can I send this woman away?" Hua Qing was already showing weakness by saying this. The ministers shook their heads. "This woman is a demoness. If she's not of our race, we will kill her. If she harbors resentment, it will also be harmful to the Yin Kingdom." "Hua Qing, I was wrong about you. I thought you truly loved me, but you did it for the throne." Little Fox shook her head with tears streaming down her face. She looked as if she couldn't accept it. "Okay, I'll leave. I don't want to see you again." She came to the ancient times and fell in love with a man, but this was the result. Chapter 253. Hua Qing gave up the throne. No matter how the ministers persuaded him, it was useless. Hua Qing took the opportunity to say that if the Little Fox stayed by his side, he would continue to be the emperor. The ministers immediately calmed down and didn't say anything. Hua Qing had no choice but to give up the throne. Otherwise, the Little Fox would die. Now that the entire palace was surrounded, he was like a crab with its claws tied. He couldn't bear to let Hooer get hurt. Seeing the tears of joy and the deep affection in Hooer's eyes, Hua Qing felt that it was worth it. Perhaps he and Hooer would have a different life. In the end, Hua Qing and the Little Fox were restrained in the bedchamber. Hua Qing's eyes landed on Ningxu. He said coldly, "Empress, you are the one who brought disaster to the Yin Kingdom." Ningxu didn't understand. She said with grievance, "I don't understand what you are talking about, Emperor. You let the wolf into the house. Your Xiao family wants to be the master of this country. You have wild ambitions. I have always been on guard against your Xiao family. I didn't expect you to be one step ahead. I missed a good opportunity." Hua Qing looked at Ningxu with disgust. "I have always hated you. Back then, it was as if I begged to marry you. I have always hated you. I should have strangled Hua Chunwang." Ningxu bowed and said lightly, "Thank you, Your Majesty, for tolerating Qinxia for so many years. Back then, Qinxia did not force Your Majesty to marry Qinxia. Instead, Your Majesty married Qinxia for the throne. Qinxia has nothing to feel wronged about. So why should Your Majesty feel wronged? Not to mention, Your Majesty has been using Qinxia since the beginning. Then, were you the one who planned tonight's incident?" Hua Qing's poisonous eyes scraped Ningxu. Ningxu shook her head. "Your Majesty, this matter has nothing to do with this concubine. This concubine is just a woman in the imperial harem. The people you look down on don't have the ability to move the court officials. Your Majesty, you think too much." Ningxu held Hua Chunwang's hand and left. Walking on the wet road, the rain seeped into their shoes and made them feel cold. Hua Chunwang looked at the Empress's back. Her hair was messy, but she walked calmly. He had never understood this wife he had married as a decoration. When they returned to the bedroom, Ningxu asked someone to boil water for a bath. It was not good to catch a cold. Hua Chunwang was a little depressed. How sad must Hua Chunwang be to hear his father say that he should be strangled when he was born. Chunwang, you don't need to mind your imperial father's words. This kind of person doesn't deserve to be a father. Ning Shu patted Chunwang's head. No matter what, imperial mother will protect you. Hua Chunwang raised his head. He looked at Ning Shu and said, Mother, I feel bad for you. She looked at Hua Qing and said, Do you regret giving up the throne? Hua Qing lowered his head and kissed the little fox's forehead. He said, I told you. You are the most important thing to me. Hua Qing, meeting you is my greatest fortune. The little fox hugged Hua Qing's neck. She stood on her tiptoes and kissed Hua Qing's lips. Hua Qing hugged the little fox tightly. He had nothing left but the little fox. From now on, she was his everything. Hua Qing kissed the little fox passionately. He tried not to let himself regret. After a series of complicated ceremonies, Ning Shu finally accompanied Hua Chunwang through the process of ascending the throne. She was exhausted. Hua Chunwang's face was pale. Ning Shu quickly had someone prepare hot water for washing up. After the two of them washed up, Hua Chunwang looked at Ning Shu in a daze and asked, Mother, I am now the emperor? Ning Shu looked at her silly face and smiled. Yes, you are now the emperor. You need to call yourself okay? Mother, I will protect you from now on. I will never let you get hurt again. Hua Chunwang hugged Ning Shu and gritted his teeth. Ning Shu patted him on the back. She felt Hua Chunwang cry. She immediately said, Don't cry. Chunwang, no one will be able to hurt you anymore. With Chunwang protecting me, no one will dare to bully me. Hua Chunwang wiped away his tears and said, But father don't worry about your father. He is no longer the master of this country. He gave it up himself. Ning Shu said calmly, As long as I am here, no one will be able to hurt you. Not even your father. I should be the one protecting you now. I hope you won't be sad for my father. She wasn't sad at all. Really. Chapter 254. Hua Chunwang handed the commander's seal to Ning Shu, but Ning Shu did not accept it. He said to Hua Chunwang, Emperor, from now on, this is yours. Keep it safe. This commander's seal is what you rely on. If you encounter any problems, ask the officials for advice. Mother will retire in the back palace. Hua Chunwang smiled and said, Imperial mother is not old at all. If Imperial mother wants to live with Imperial father, it is possible. Please don't. Your father hates me to the bone. I don't want to go. My days in the back palace are comfortable. Ning Shu quickly waved his hand. Emperor, you are the ruler now. Emperor, you are now the ruler of all the people. You must think twice before you do anything. Learn more from your teacher. The imperial court pursues the doctrine of the mean. There must be a limit to everything. Mother Empress wants to say so much. You must keep the commander's seal. You must not be deceived by others. This is what you need to settle down and live your life. Ning Shu wanted to reach out and pat Hua Chunwang's head, but he remembered that Hua Chunwang was now the emperor. It would not be good to touch him. Hua Chunwang grabbed Ning Shu's hand and placed it on his head. He said, I know mother has done a lot for me. I hope mother can be happy. Mother used to say this to me. Now I hope mother can be happy. Hua Chunwang's eyes were watery and sincere as he looked at Ning Shu. Ning Shu smiled and said, Mother is very happy. Although Hua Chunwang had become the emperor, he did not have the right to make decisions in the court. Hua Chunwang was not in a rush. He was slowly learning. Most of the court matters were decided by the old Grand Tutor. For a time he was very powerful. However, the old Grand Tutor did not dare to be too arrogant. First, the emperor had military power. Next to him was the Duke Zhen. There was also the Empress Dowager, who did not seem to care about the back palace. Greetings to the Empress Dowager. Royal Noble Consort Xian. No, Royal Noble Consort Ning Shu bowed. Why don't you take good care of your body? You look thinner than before. Ning Shu looked at her and asked. Now that she was able to eat and sleep well, and didn't need to scheme against each other, her days were too comfortable. Thus, when Ning Shu saw Imperial Noble Consort Xian's haggard appearance, he felt a sense of disappointment. Many thanks for the Empress Dowager's concern. As long as this concubine wants that demoness, it's like a fishbone in this concubine's throat. This concubine's heart is filled with hatred. Imperial concubine Xian said hatefully. Imperial concubine, back then you said that you could take revenge. But now that demoness is still alive and well. Ningshu looked at her. Speaking of which, it was all thanks to Imperial noble consort Xian that they were able to cooperate with the Imperial tutor's residence. The influence of the Imperial tutor's residence was weakening in the Imperial court. Furthermore, they did not have any outstanding descendants. They had originally hoped that the Imperial noble consort in the palace would be able to give birth to a successor. If they gave it a shot, they might be able to bring their clan back to glory. It wasn't easy for her to get pregnant, but in the end, she had a miscarriage. Furthermore, her body was severely injured, and she wouldn't be able to get pregnant in the future. Ningshu promised that as long as Huaqing was defeated and Hua Chengwang ascended the throne, the imperial tutor would enter the cabinet and become the grand secretary. This position could be considered the highest rank among the civil officials. The imperial tutor agreed. Furthermore, if a little radish ascended the throne, his authority would naturally be greater. The imperial tutor probably didn't expect that the Shao clan would actually hand over their military power. With the military power in the hands of the emperor, the throne would be even more stable. Out of self-preservation, the Shao clan wanted to pull Huaqing down. The reason why the Shao clan wasn't willing to hand over their military power was because they knew that Huaqing was afraid of the Shao clan. However, handing over the military power meant death. Without the military power, the empress and the little prince in the imperial harem would probably not be able to protect themselves. The military power was actually a hot potato, but they had no choice but to hold on to it tightly to save their lives. Death isn't the best outcome. You don't have to be too anxious. Ningshu said. Not all love is so strong. Their love might not be as beautiful as imagined. Let's go out of the palace and take a look. Ningshu suddenly wanted to see how Huaqing and the others were doing. The little fox's life was saved, but she couldn't leave the retired emperor's residence. It could be said that the two of them were under house arrest. When Ningshu and the imperial concubine arrived at the retired emperor's residence, the little fox's voice came from inside. She was shouting at Huaqing. Huaqing, I'm too bored. I want to go out and play. I'm afraid we can't go out. There are people guarding outside. Huaqing's voice said lightly. The little fox said indignantly. They are illegally restricting other people's freedom. This is against the law. Huaqing didn't say anything. The retired Empress Dowager has arrived. The imperial concubine has arrived. The eunuch shouted in a sharp voice. Ningshu and the imperial concubine walked in. Ningshu saw that the little fox's stomach was slightly bulging. He hadn't noticed during this period of time, but the little fox was actually pregnant. However, it didn't seem to be very far along. When the imperial concubine saw the little fox's bulging stomach, her body trembled. Her expression was extremely bad. When Huaqing saw the bright and beautiful Ningshu, she said coldly, "What are you doing here?" Ningshu looked around the room and finally nodded. It seems like the retired emperor's living environment is not bad. Seeing the two women, the little fox immediately covered her stomach and hid behind Huaqing. The previous incident of the forced abdication had made the little fox tremble. Now that she saw Ningshu, the little fox's heart trembled. In addition, Huaqing often said that his throne was taken away by the empress. The little fox was quite afraid of this evil empress. So what if she was powerful? How could a woman whose husband didn't love her be happy? Your Shao family supported a puppet emperor. Are you going to usurp the throne soon? Huaqing looked coldly at Ningshu. Her lips were extremely red, and her makeup was extremely sharp. It felt like one would be suppressed by her aura if they stood in front of her. Ningshu raised her eyebrows. My Shao family has already given up their military power. Chengwang is not some puppet emperor. Your Shao family handed over their military power? Huaqing's expression was somewhat shaken. Ningshu smiled. Her face was like a slowly blooming rose with thorns, beautiful and piercing. You schemed to take the Shao family's military power, but now your son has effortlessly obtained it. Hua Qing pursed her lips. As long as the country is still in the hands of the Hua family, you are now the retired emperor. You don't have to worry about the country's affairs. Ningxu smiled. I wish you all happiness. Ningxu turned and left. She could tell that Hua Qing wasn't doing well. There was a hint of depression between her brows that couldn't be dissolved. When a man's power was taken away, his glory would be reduced by more than half. Knowing that you all aren't doing well, I feel much better. On the way back to the palace, Imperial Consort Xian's face was gloomy. Ningxu knew that she wasn't willing to accept it, but Ningxu didn't want to care. Whatever Imperial Consort Xian wanted to do, Ningxu wouldn't stop her. Not long after, news of the little fox's miscarriage came. The little fox had a playful personality to begin with. In the end, she fell down the stairs and reddened on the spot. Hua Qing almost went crazy. Even so, the little fox still miscarried. Chapter 255. Ningxu felt that little fox's miscarriage must have been caused by Grand Concubine Xian, but Ningxu did not say anything and pretended not to know anything. After little fox's miscarriage, she lay on the bed with a blank expression. Hua Qing hugged little fox and kept telling her that she would have a child in the future. Little fox looked at Hua Qing. His face was much thinner, and his eyes were filled with worry and love. But for some reason, little fox felt sick of it, and was even glad that the child was gone. If she really lived like a hostage in the retired emperor's residence with Hua Qing, what joy would there be in such a life? Seeing Hua Qing every day really made her feel a little bored. Little fox felt that her love for Hua Qing had entered a period of weakness. There was nothing new about it anymore. Little fox wanted to go out for a walk. Was her ancient life like this? To be imprisoned in the retired emperor's residence for the rest of her life. Little fox also felt that Hua Qing was far less charming than before. What she loved was not power and money, but power and money were definitely the embodiment of charm. Men were only charming because of their career. But Hua Qing had been stripped of his position as emperor, and his halo had been stripped away. Little fox felt suffocated at the thought of living a mediocre life in the retired emperor's residence for the rest of her life. She wanted to escape from this prison. Hua Qing clearly felt the change in little fox's attitude towards him, but he did not say anything. He had given up everything except for little fox. No matter what, he had to capture little fox. She was the only thing left in his life. Without the throne, his wife and son were like enemies. His life was so lonely that little fox was the only thing left. Hua Qing treated little fox better and better. But the more Hua Qing was like this, the more frustrated little fox was, and the more she wanted to leave this suffocating place. Hua Qing was depressed all day. Looking at the palace, he felt a little regretful. He was supposed to be the high and mighty emperor. Why couldn't the throne and little fox coexist? Hua Qing and little fox began to argue. Little fox cried and threw a tantrum to leave, but Hua Qing could not let her go. If little fox left, everything he had done and given up would be meaningless. In any case, he couldn't have a peaceful day. When Ningxu found out that little fox had escaped from the retired emperor's residence time and time again, only to be caught by the people who were monitoring her, he was so angry that he almost went crazy. Hua Qing did not care about it, but there was only resentment between the two. Hua Qing complained that little fox did not understand him, and that he had sacrificed so much for little fox. But little fox complained that Hua Qing was selfish, trapping herself in such a place and making life boring. It was only then that Hua Qing truly felt the difference in little fox. No other woman was as passionate about running outside as little fox. Other women and women would never step out of the house, but little fox would die if she stayed at home. Ningxu smiled faintly. He seemed to be extremely loyal, but he couldn't withstand the ravages of time and details. The giant wheel of love sank just like that. Ningxu called Hua Chunwang to the palace for a meal. Now that her mission had been completed, it would not be long before she left this world. Before she left, she wanted to have a meal with her temporary son. Hua Chunwang grew very quickly. He was already at Ningxu's chin. He ate everything during meals, but he didn't eat much. No one could tell what he liked to eat, or what he disliked to eat. He hid his preferences, so that no one would know about it. Ning Shu placed Hua Chunwang's favorite food on his plate, and said to him, Mother's Chunwang will definitely be a good emperor. Your son will not disappoint mother's expectations. Hua Chunwang said very seriously. Ning Shu smiled and said, I hope that in the future, when you have a woman you like, it's okay to dote on her. Don't ever be like your father, who only left behind exhausted ashes in the end, due to overly intense feelings. A gentle flow of water is beautiful. Most importantly, don't fall in love with a woman who is too stupid. Your son understands. If I have a woman I like in the future, I will definitely let mother take a look. Hua Chunwang nodded and said with a smile, with father's example, your son does not dare to fall in love with women. As long as you have a sense of propriety, Ning Shu said. Finally he patted Hua Chunwang's head and said, Chunwang, good luck. After the meal, Hua Chunwang left. Ning Shu lay on the bed and took a nap. Ding, Ning Shu moi, did you miss me? 2333's voice suddenly sounded in his mind. Ning Shu said, Scram. Would it kill you to be nicer to me? 2333's voice sounded very wronged. Mission completed, leave Ren world. Ning Shu's head buzzed, and then he did not feel anything. When he woke up, he was in the dimensional space. He looked down at his soul. Although it was a bit dim, it was not as exhausted as before. 2333 system, sir. See how many points I have this time. Okay. Ning Shu's status panel appeared in front of him. Number 23333 name, Ning Shu age, 27 experience, 8000060000 soul, 200 HP, 50 wisdom, 85 charm, 3 luck, 34 spirit, 120 martial strength, 10 aptitude, 26 merit, 5 skills, 5 rings spear technique, trash fighting technique, trash entry level peerless martial arts honorary title, Goddess of War aura, Mother of the World Queen's blessing, mission completion, 100. Received 10 attribute points. Ning Shu raised his eyebrows and asked 2333. What the hell is this Mother of the World aura? You changed Hua Chunwang's fate. The original owner Xiao Xiao is grateful to you. You have the halo of being the Mother of the World. Actually, this is the original owner, giving you some of the people's faith. He also gave you some of his luck. That good? Ning Shu was a bit surprised. With 60,000 points and 10 attribute points, the biggest reward was probably this Mother of the World aura. Ning Shu added the 10 attribute points to his HP and luck. Number 23333 name, Ning Shu age, 27 experience, 140000 soul, 200 HP, 505 wisdom, 85 charm, 3 luck, 345 spirit, 120 martial strength, 10 aptitude, 26 merit, 5 skills, 5 rings spear technique, trash fighting technique, trash entry level peerless martial arts honorary title, Goddess of War aura, Mother of the World Queen's blessing. Ning Shu, you can do it. Now you have 140,000 points. Wait for 200,000 points, and you can open the beginner system mall. Beginner system mall? Is there an advanced system mall? Ning Shu asked. 2333's tone was filled with longing. The best is still the Super System Mall. There are all kinds of treasures in there. I've seen someone exchange for a plane. Those who can open the Super System Mall are like gods. It's good that you can open the Beginner System Mall. Damn, I can't imagine. Chapter 256. Ning Shu counted with his fingers when he would be able to open the system store. He estimated that he would only need to do one more quest before he could open it. Suddenly, he was filled with fighting spirit. Once he opened the system store, he would be able to exchange for soul training. He wouldn't have to train like a tortoise anymore. Every time he stayed in the quest world, his soul would be greatly depleted. Ning Shu, do you have a quest to complete? 2333 Ning Shu asked. Ning Shu asked, what's a quest? It's a quest to make the target fall in love with you. 2333 explained. Ning Shu was speechless. Ha ha ha, fall in love with me? Ning Shu pointed at his own nose. With my 3 points of charm, do you think I can make someone fall in love with me? Don't belittle yourself. You're actually quite handsome, 2333 said. Besides, you're using the body of the defiant attacker. You're using your soul to conquer him. Ning Shu waved his hand. I'm not going. Why not? 2333 was puzzled. This quest is very popular. It wasn't easy for me to get it. It's also very easy. This quest is easy. How can it be easy? Ning Shu's expression was calm. It's to make someone fall in love with someone else. 2333 quickly said. That's right. You just have to make the target fall in love with you. It's better than fighting and killing. It's easier and easier than the tiring quests. Fall in love with me or the original owner? Ning Shu frowned. 2333 immediately said. Of course it's the original owner. If not, why would the target pay the price to be conquered? Ning Shu, is there something wrong with your brain? Can't you understand something as simple as this? Ha ha ha, you're the one with something wrong with your brain. The original owner and I are not the same person. After I left, the original owner returned to his body. How can love be gained through a quest? Ning Shu waved his hand. I'm not going to do this quest. Can a relationship gained through someone else's quest last? She could leave the mission world without any reluctance because she didn't have any emotional entanglements with the people inside. Love was mutual. It wasn't as if you could win someone's heart by doing a few things. You also had to give your heart. This kind of thing is the most mysterious. Even the true love between the male and female lead can be torn apart, let alone this kind of illusory love. Since the Wish Master wanted to use her soul power to make the target fall in love with her, it meant that the target didn't love the Wish Master at all. Ning Shu felt that she didn't have the ability or charm to make the man fall in love with her. If he didn't love her, then he didn't love her. Emotional debt was the hardest to repay. Furthermore, using such a method to get close to the target meant that this relationship wasn't simple from the start. 2333 system. Don't give me this kind of quest in the future. I can't do it, Ning Shu said directly. Ning Shu would rather do some fighting and killing quests. At least he felt happy. All right, you really don't know how to appreciate my kindness. I think you're working too hard on the quests. You can make simple quests so complicated. Take the Empress quest for example. You can totally woo the Emperor Huiqing. With Huiqing around, nothing will be a problem, 2333 said. In the end, you made it so complicated. You formed factions and usurped the throne. Aren't you tired? Ning Shu was speechless. I'm happy. Do you want to sleep with me and Huiqing? Do you really think the Empress wants to see another woman in her body sleep with her husband? Ning Shu dared to guarantee with his own head that if she really slept with Huiqing, the Empress would never give her the halo of being the mother of the world, even if this man had wronged her a lot. However, if her husband fell in love with someone suddenly appeared and slept with her, it would be even more humiliating for the Empress. 2333, you're a system after all. You don't understand humans, and you don't understand human women. This kind of creature is so complicated that it will burn your main brain, Ning Shu said disdainfully. 2333. Don't give me this kind of quest in the future. I can't do it. Ning Shu reiterated again. He didn't want to do this kind of quest that was deceptive. It was too tiring. Ning Shu sat cross-legged on the ground and began to cultivate. After some time, Ning Shu opened his eyes. He saw that his soul had become thicker and felt a sense of accomplishment. 2333, let's start the quest, Ning Shu said as he stood up. 2333 said weakly, okay. He was probably dissatisfied with Ning Shu's rejection. Ning Shu also felt that rejecting 2333 was too stiff. He wanted to say something, but his mind went blank, and then he lost consciousness. When Ning Shu woke up, he found that his body was flying. Then he fell to the ground with a bang. He was in so much pain that he couldn't stop breathing. His body was about to fall apart. A hot and sticky liquid surged up his throat. He spat out a mouthful of blood. Damn, what's going on? It's so painful. Niece, aren't you a little too vicious? A man's voice was filled with resentment. Uncle Wei, it's hard to avoid accidental injuries in a duel. If Hui Di makes you unhappy, you can punish her as you wish. A clear and cold female voice rang out. This voice was very pleasant to the ears, like the sound of spring water splashing on jade. The tinkling sound carried boundless coldness. Just by hearing this voice, one could imagine the appearance of a peerless beauty in one's mind. Ning Shu endured the pain in her heart. When she opened her eyes, she saw a woman in white. Her hair fluttered in the wind. Her face was covered by a thin veil, revealing her cold eyes, and a forehead as bright as moonlight. Although she was wearing a veil, she could feel that the face behind the veil was definitely a peerless beauty. Cold like Chang, from the Cold Palace. Her temperament was ethereal. Seeing this woman, Ning Shu's brain didn't react. He said first, "It's okay, it doesn't hurt." "Motherfucker, it hurts so much." "Wait, what's with this coarse male voice?" Ning Shu quickly touched his chest. "It's flat." Ning Shu didn't give up and touched his lower body. There was a lump hanging down there. Damn, what's going on? Sherhuidi saw this man doing such a vulgar action in front of her. She held the thin veil in her hand and prepared to hit Ning Shu again. Ning Shu still hadn't recovered from the shock of transmigrating into a man. He saw this woman with a veil swinging a cloth-like weapon towards him. Although it was a cloth, it carried a swift and fierce wind. It made Ning Shu feel as if he was facing a sword. Ning Shu couldn't move now. He quickly shouted, "I admit defeat, I surrender." Haha. The sound of laughter came from below the stage. It was obvious that they were laughing at Ning Shu. Suddenly, there was a strong qi that knocked away Sherhuidi's cloth. A person stood in front of Ning Shu and stuffed a pill into his mouth. After swallowing the pill, Ning Shu felt much better. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support. And don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.